Okay, so today we have an unusual show for the Israel advocacy movement because we're not going to be talking about Israel. Those that have been watching the channel for a while know that I learnt my chops at Speaker's Corner. And Speaker's Corner is a part of London. It's a small part of a park where you have freedom of speech and people are able to express themselves in whichever way they want, as long as they're not inciting actual violence and causing harm to people. Anything goes. And so I went there. It was a great place for me to engage with Muslims, Christians, atheists, communists, socialists, everybody about Israel, Zionism, and Judaism. A few days ago on Sunday, there was a horrific terror attack where a friend of ours was stabbed. And so if you've been paying attention to the news, if you've been paying attention to their social media, if you've been paying attention to our feed, you probably noticed some of the content around this attack. And so the woman who was attacked she's a Turkish refugee. She came here. She was Muslim, and she converted to Christianity. And so joining me on the channel today to discuss the attack are two regulars at Speaker's Corner. Steve, who is, I'll allow Steve to introduce himself and explain who he is and why he goes there. Bob, who I'll also allow to introduce himself and tell you who he is. But he's a Christian, a very well-known Christian in the park, as is Hatun. And there's myself, an Orthodox Jew. Now, we may be getting joined by a Muslim friend of mine to create more balance to the panel, but we'll be discussing what happened on Sunday in the horrific attack. So I guess, Steve, I'll pass it over to you to give a little bit of context. You were there, you know Hatun relatively well. And so if you just talk us through what happened on Sunday to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, as you said, Joseph, and well, firstly, I say pleasure to be on the panel with you both. A lot of respect for both of you. I think we our starting positions are very different when it comes to theology and religion, but I think the three of us are very, very respectful of each other, and I think we've all got a lot of time. So thank you for inviting me. So yeah, as you say, Hatun Tash, she's of Turkish origin. She's an ex-Muslim. She converted to Christianity. And then basically fled the UK from a rather sort of violent and unpleasant time that she faced in Turkey. She's been attending Speaker's Corner for, I'm not sure precisely how long, but a good few years. I'd say it must be at least 5 or 6 years. And I think she was initially inspired by an American guy called Jay Smith, who I think probably kind of sort of helped give her the confidence to sort of get up on a ladder and face the barrage that many of us face on a weekly basis at Speaker's Corner. So she's part of DCCI Ministries, which is Defend Christ and Critique Islam, and she's probably one of those people in life that could be described as Marmite. People either have a lot of time and respect for her, or they really, really detest her. She absolutely does not hold back from sharing her views and ultimately defending Christ and from critiquing Islam. And as anyone that knows anything about Speaker's Corner in the recent years, Islam has certainly become a very heavy presence at the corner. So she, Sunday was, only the last episode of an awful lot of violent attacks that she's had, which do seem to have been getting worse over the last year or so. So, she has previously been groped, sexually assaulted, spat on, lots of intimidation and threats. She's been hit, she's been spat. She was actually knocked unconscious after one assault back in October last year. So what's happened, on Sunday is just one of a long episode of violence that the woman's encountered. So basically, what happened on Sunday was that the weather was absolutely appalling. It was absolutely tipping down with rain for most of the day. But us hard ones were still going and sort of sheltering under umbrellas and under trees talking. I'd actually just left And I was on my way home and I had a message from a friend that was at the corner, very short message, literally saying Hatun has been stabbed. Obviously completely shocked. So I immediately did a U-turn and went straight back to this corner as fast as I could. And by the time I got back to the corner, I think there was about 7 or 8 police vehicles in the corner. Most of it had been taped off with police tape. An ambulance, strangely, was only just arriving as I returned. And obviously, you know, talking to people that had been there and subsequently looking at videos that I think we're probably going to see some of tonight, discovered that, yes, an individual who apparently had been loitering around the corner for much of the afternoon in a black hood and a black cloak and wearing a blue surgical mask, obviously purportedly for COVID reasons, who'd been loitering around all day, suddenly launched his attack and tried to stab her. And I think from what we've all seen on video evidence, he had one intention, and that was to slit her throat and murder her, which, you know, even saying those words, it's just such a shocking moment. You know, we've seen awful violence, but I don't think, you know, even people that have been going to Speaker's Corner longer than me, and I've been going there 20 years, have said to me, you know, they cannot remember ever such an awful attack occurring within the rounds of the corner.
You're on mute.
What I'll do now, I'll actually play the attack. So trigger warning, I don't like that expression, but we will play the video now. It is quite graphic. It's just a short clip, just to give those context that haven't seen what happened, to give them context of the actual incident we're talking about.
The Spirit of Allah and the word of Allah does not worthy of worship.
No. What I'm saying is the word of Allah, Kalam Allah, Kalam Allah, Al-Qur'an, Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is word. But the spirit, it's going on, hold on.
What happened? Oh my God, Lord, sister, shit. Oh my God, Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah, somebody needs to call the ambulance.
My Lord.
Hassan, are you okay? Listen. What's going on? Is that a stab?
Can someone call ambulance, please?
Somebody call the ambulance, bro. Yeah, I'm trying to call the ambulance. I can't see the.
So I'm just going to pause it there. This is a shortened version of the video. The footage was actually taken by Soco Films, who Bob works closely with, believe may be part of. So if you want to see the video in its entirety, head over to their YouTube channel where you can watch it. One of the most shocking things, which actually wasn't in there, is after the stabbing, which was, you see it in the background, they're actually filming a dialogue, and in the background they accidentally captured the attack on camera. You can see after the attack, many of the people in the crowd, I would describe them as Islamists, were laughing. It was that they've just witnessed the terror attack, and their immediate reaction to that attack was to laugh. And so you can see the full footage. Now, what happened, we now know with the passage of time, that the attacker went for what looks like he went for her neck or her face. He caught her face with a knife, and he went to attack her again. I don't know if he caught her arm or it was blocked, but the additional strikes didn't connect. Now, Bob is probably better posed to speak about why that was targeted, but I will play one video, which is actually, ironically, is Hatun reading out a verse for the Qur'an, which may describe why the attacker struck for the place he went for next. And let me just play that video, and then we'll have a quick conversation and around what happened. And we've actually just been joined by a dear friend of mine, a Muslim, who will be able to elaborate on the verses in the Quran and how they may have been taken out of context by these extremists. But I'm now going to play this clip.
When you meet those disbelief, strike their neck. When you believe disbelief, strike their neck.
So what Hatton has said, I believe this was a couple of years earlier, she was reading a passage from the Quran, an ayah, which talks about, and just my friend who's going to join us will maybe be able to give context to the verse, but many jihadists, many extremists go for the neck of those for their that they're looking to inflict terror and fear upon. They go to strike the neck, and it's a passage from the Quran, and Hatton had read it out previously, and then in the near identical spot on Sunday where she was standing a few years ago, an actual terrorist did try to strike her neck and did strike at her. Unfortunately for Hatton, he only caught her face, and had the knife been slightly to the left, I believe it could have been. I mean, this was an attempted murder. The man was trying to kill her, and she was very fortunate to have escaped. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to now bring in another. Bring one more person into the channel, and we can just discuss what we've seen in those videos. And Jassim, I'd like to welcome you to the chat. It's good to have you here because obviously we're talking about the Quran. I'm a Jew, Bob's a Christian, and Steve's an atheist, and so it will be good to reflect on that particular verse and then the horrific attack that we just witnessed.
Yeah, that's Salam alaikum for everything. That's verse number 8, chapter 8, verse 12. I don't see the link between striking someone on the streets of London with a knife or with a broken bottle or with whatever, even with bare hands, and the verse of the Quran that it was a revelation during a battle, one of the many battles Muslims fought against evil, against people who were coming after them and trying to stop them from building their own community, something that every other religion witnessed towards their history, and every nation, every nationhood, even Israel or the USA, they all fought for a reason. So I'm not here to justify the use of violence. I'm just saying simply, I'm waiting to hear the justification, the full length of the justification that gives someone who read the verse of the Quran. These verses of the Quran are not Confucius quotes. There's not like quote cards. You don't just like go and pick the one you like.
And I'd agree with, but what I'd like to say, I don't believe any of us today are putting Islam on trial. Maybe some people will do that at Speaker's Corner, but tonight we're literally talking about Hatun, the motivation behind the attackers, and I believe there is a connection between that verse, between things Hatun had said at Speaker's Corner in that very same spot, and why. And now this is just my theory, and why the attacker went and struck for the place that he struck. Steve, Bob, I know you've been silent up until this point. You've been at the corner for many years now. You weren't there on Sunday, as was that. Thankfully, I wasn't there. I had a live stream. Had I not had a live stream with some peacemakers, I would have been at Speaker's Corner. And I'd just like to add, Hatton is the most despised person by many at the corner. After Hatton, you're probably looking at myself, Bob, and Steve as being the next on the list. So had any of us been there at the park, it's likely that we too could have been targets of that attacker for different reasons, but it's highly possible that we would have found ourselves caught up in that horrific attack. And so, Bob, maybe pass it over to you because I know you haven't said much yet.
Okay, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So, I mean, I think that the verse should be read in its fullness. It says, "Remember thy Lord inspired the angels. I am with you, and give firmness to the believers. I will instill terror into the hearts of the unbelievers. Smite ye above their necks, and smite all their fingertips off them." Now, I actually will agree with pretty much everyone else that the Islamists who use this to justify attacks are probably not interpreting it in a classical way, because the paradigm of Islam is a paradigm of being in power. And so the normative interpretations of the Quran assume that there is a caliphate and assume that there is an Islamic authority. And
where did you get that from?
I'll finish my point if that's all right, Yasim.
Yeah.
And in
No,
terms of
you just made
no,
a
I'm
claim
going to finish my point if that's all right. I'll finish my
just
point.
made the claim that the
No,
Quran
I'm going to finish my
caliphate.
point. No, I'm still going to finish my point. Thank you. So, in terms of the way to interpret this, it's more along the lines of what happens in jihad, offensive jihad, when Muslims are invading other people's lands and seeking to conquer other people's territories. But this particular action to try and murder Hatun that we saw, I think, has more relevance to the Sirat literature and the Hadith literature.
Which one? You carry on making claims.
I'm still going to finish my point. It doesn't matter how many times you interrupt me, Yasin. I'm still going to finish my point. It doesn't matter how many times you interrupt
So
me.
what I'm going to do, just because I want this to be a respectful conversation,
I'm still going to finish my point.
let's allow everybody to speak, and everyone will be.
You're talking nonsense.
I'm still going to finish my point.
Let him speak. Let him speak, and then we'll come back.
No one's your dimmy, Yasim. I'm not your dimmy. Joseph's not your dimmy.
So
you don't get to dominate me. You don't get to dominate. I'm not paying you.
Where does the Quran say that we
I'm
need
not paying
to be Muslim?
I'm not paying you.
Yes. Where does the Quran
So
say
anyway,
we need to be a Muslim? Is it that difficult?
Joseph, when you want me to finish my point, I will do, but I haven't finished my point yet.
You didn't give
No, are you telling me to keep quiet, Yasim? No, I think you should keep quiet.
I will keep quiet.
I think you should keep quiet, and you should allow other people to speak. Because I guarantee, Yasim, if I interrupt you as much as you're interrupting me, you'll be complaining about it.
No,
because that's just how it goes all the time.
I'm asking you to give evidence.
It's weird. I was quiet and listening to Joseph. I was quiet and listening to Steve.
I'm asking you
interrupted neither of them, and yet here you are. And within minutes of your arrival, you're doing nothing but trying to dominate and interrupt. It does not matter how long you keep interrupting. I'm not going to stop until I finish my point. So all you're doing is just wasting everyone's time, Yasim. That's all you're doing right now. You're wasting Joseph's time, you're wasting Steve's time, you're wasting my time, you're wasting everybody else's time. All you need to do is learn some manners. I know your prophet didn't teach you any manners. I know your prophet had no manners. And you're demonstrating that right now by believing that you can just dominate, but you're going to have to control yourself. Because as you can see, you are just wasting time.
You don't know me.
I'm still going to finish my point. I'm still going to finish my point. Literally, you are wasting everyone's time right now. Wasting everybody's time. Go on,
I'm sure. I'm. What I would say is, because I think for the benefit of the viewers, I think the audience really wants to hear what everyone has to say. They want to hear the rebuttals. They want to hear the arguments. I think the only way this works is if we allow each other to speak in our entirety. I'm going to be making notes because I'm sure people will say things that I disagree with, and I suggest that everyone makes notes, and we can ask the speakers to address those areas of contention. But once they've put forward their entire argument, I think that's, and then we're not speaking over each other. So I'll allow Bob to continue, but I think that would be best for everyone.
Thank you very much. So it will seem now that I've been speaking for a very long time, but I want everyone to remember I've just spent 3 or 4 minutes asking Yasim to show basic manners and basic politeness. So as I was saying, I think that the attack that happened and the attempt to murder Hatun actually has more connection to the Sirat literature and the Hadith literature, in which Muhammad either permitted or called for or sanctioned or excused the murder of other people. And I'm going to give you some names now. So, for example, Asma bint Mawan, Abu Afaq, Al-Nadir ibn al-Harith, Uqba bin Abu Mu'ayt.
Yeah, he just picked them randomly.
Forgive my
he just picked them randomly.
Mispronunciation of the names. Again, Yasim, if you could just show some basic manners, very basic ones, the kind of ones that I hope your mother might have taught you, so that people can hear the argument that I'm making. Kab ibn al-Ashraf, Abu Rafi ibn Abi al-Hukayk, Khalid ibn Sufyan, Abu Azza Amir bin Abd Allah al-Jamahi. These were all people that Muhammad had murdered or sanctioned the murder of or excused the murder of. Muawiyah bin al-Mughira, al-Harith bin Suwaid al-Ansari, Abu Sufyan, Banu Qurayza, the Banu Qurayza tribe, hundreds of people.
What is the point you are trying to make? Because I'm
Abdullah
lost.
ibn Ubay
What is the point you are trying to make?
al-Yusari. Again, Yassim, I'll just pause and
Yeah,
just
what is
teach
the
you
point you are
again.
trying to make? You are reading a list of
All you're
people.
doing is
What
wasting
is the point?
people's time.
Pick one of those and
Could you mute
explain what
him?
is.
Because he
Pick
obviously
one
can't
of them. Pick
control
one
himself.
of them. Choose
And
one
I'm
of them.
still not finishing my point.
Okay,
And
pick one name.
once
Can you pick
again,
one
the
name?
time is just being wasted.
Are you able to pick one of
I'm
those
not going
names
to stop. And
of
all
your
that you're
choice?
doing, Yassim, is demonstrating that you can't control yourself.
No, I'm
And
asking you
that's
to
not
pick one of those
surprising
names.
because
Can you pick
these
one
are the
name?
fruits of Islam.
Are you
And
able
you
to support your
demonstrated
claims
well
just
as
like
the
you're asking?
mindset.
Can I just interject, guys?
And now I haven't even
There are
finished my point.
no,
I haven't even finished the
I'm
point I'm
going to
making.
interject. I hope Joseph doesn't mind. There are 4 of us on this panel. This is simply not going to work unless we speak individually, one at a time. Of course, we can challenge and disagree and argue about what someone has said, but with 4 of us on the panel, that simply is not going to work unless we give each other time to speak, we listen, and then we respond when the person has finished. Now, I don't like it when you give specific time limits, but maybe we're going to have to because this isn't working currently.
I completely agree. And what I say, I really, really hope we can all just, I mean, I'm reading the comments. And just all the Muslim brothers and sisters are saying, please, brother, allow Bob to speak. And they all hate Bob. Trust me. The people who are wanting to hear Bob do not like him. We're talking Zabida, reactionary. We're talking all the speakers corner heavyweight.
Can I just say something and I will keep quiet? Just give me 1 minute, please. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Hold on 1
No,
minute.
just 1 minute.
I'm not going to. I'm not accepting that. No.
Okay, go on, go on.
No,
Go
he
on.
doesn't get to talk over me, and he doesn't
Okay,
get
I will
interrupt
mute
my point, and he
myself. I will
doesn't
mute
get to
myself. Go
interject.
on.
I'm sorry. No, not at all. There we go. Right. So, as I was saying, I'll try to finish this list quickly. And sadly, I could have got through this all a lot quicker if Yassim had just managed to control himself. So, Abdullah ibn Ubay, al-Yusri ibn Rizm, they were the 8 men of Uqil, Rifa'a bin Qais, Abdullah bin Katal, Fatana, Qurabay, Huwarith ibn Nafid, Miqyas ibn Subaba, Sarah, Harith ibn Hisham, Subaya ibn Abi Umayyah, forgive me for slaughtering the Arabic, Al-Aswad al-Ansi, Ikrimah ibn Abu Jal, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And there's up to 44 groups or individuals that Muhammad had murdered, sanctioned the murder of, or excused the murder of, and many of those were murdered because they insulted Muhammad, or they mocked him, or they patronized him, or they resisted Islam, many of them just by words. And I think it's actually more because of these examples, which sit in the Sirat literature and in the Hadith literature, that in these kinds of literature is what inspired the attack against Hatun. And I think that Surah 8, verse 12 is being misapplied, to be honest, by Islamists, because it assumes a caliphate, and it's talking, I think, in terms of jihad, which is how they see themselves. They see themselves as carrying out an offensive jihad against the enemies of Islam.
And one thing I'm just before Jassim, if you finish, but before Jassim responds, one thing I'm going to say, we're going to work through a deck. At the moment, we're discussing what actually happened. I've got a section where we discuss why it happened. And so a big part of that will play into these big motivating factors. One of the things I will say as a Jew, and Bob, I'm sure you can relate to this as a Christian, is nothing frustrates me more than when non-Jews take a verse out of the Talmud or the Old Testament, the 5 books of Moses, and they then tell me what my religion or what Jews believe. And so I don't want this stream to turn into one of those speakers corner type debates. What I do think is really important, though, is that we're all able to say why we believe that this particular individual, this scumbag, tried to stab one of our friends. I think that's really, really important that we can say. And I think we must be that it's clearly religiously motivated. And so we have to look to the Quran. We have to look to the Hadith. We have to look to how they may be interpreting that, and that's why it's a discussion. But I don't think we need to turn it into a speaker's corner brawl. It's not. It should be a respectful conversation. Someone we know was nearly killed a couple of days ago because of these types of conversations. So yeah, Justin, I'll hand it over to you now because I know that you've got a number of things to say.
Firstly, I apologize if I wasted everyone's time. My intention was not to waste anyone's time. My intention was to make the most of your time. Because when Brother Joseph asked me told me about this intervention, the first, it is on the record. He can confirm it. The first thing I said, unless the brothers means Bob or anyone else. Honestly, I don't know you. This is the first time I saw you. I said, unless the brothers they bring something new that hasn't been addressed before, some new claim that has been answered before, there's no point in talking, because what you guys are doing, you just bring the same rhetoric on and on and on and on. You just went through a long list of people who were killed, and I asked you to pick one of those names and go to the history why that person was killed, and where did you get this evidence from? You are using our books against us, same books that say that a man's chest was opened and his heart was taken away and it was washed by water and was put back. And you are trusting a book that makes such claims. You are trusting our sources when it is convenient to you. But when we are talking to you, we are trying to explain to you the way we take wisdom and laws from our books, you don't listen. So if you are trusting a book that says that a man's heart was taken from his chest and was washed in water of Zamzam and was put back and stitched, and that man lived until he was 60 or 65, then you can, if you call this a reason, then carry on and use the sources. But if you want to discuss the life of the Prophet Muhammad, want to discuss the Seerah, want to discuss the Quran, I invite you, come to the Islamic College, bring your books and come and talk to me over there. Don't use the techniques of speaker corners, because these things, we have been doing these things since 9/11. Since 9/11, people have been attacking Islam and accusing the Prophet Muhammad and our seerah, our hadith, and our verses of causing deaths and encouraging people to become terrorists. What have you achieved since 9/11 till today? Nothing. There are more deaths amongst Muslims. 97% of the victims of terrorism are Muslims. There are more terrorists than before. Before we had 3,000 members of Al-Qaeda spread in the world. Now we have more than 30,000 suspected terrorists in the world. There are more deaths. There's more destruction. What have you achieved? Nothing. Because someone had the brilliant idea to use terrorism to discredit Islam. Excuse me, it didn't work. There are more Muslims, there are more victims amongst us, and there are more terrorists. You need to find that you convinced maybe some people to not convert to Islam because you scared them of us. Fair enough. You convinced some people to leave Islam because you scared them about these things. Fair enough. But have you achieved something? Zero. You didn't take my faith out of my heart, and I'm inviting you. If you want to study, come to the classroom. I'll be more than happy to teach you and to learn from you.
So I'd encourage actually the two of you to connect external to this. What I'm going to do now, because it's related to what both of you said, I'm actually going to play a few more videos to give context of the kind of things that Hatun did. So Hatun has made, because she is absolutely fearless and very focused on her mission, she's made a lot of enemies in the park. And I'm going to show why she may have made some of those enemies for the viewers that aren't familiar with the type of work that she does. And then I'm going to play some of the reactions from both the people at the corner, from well-known dawah carriers, and from the actual police themselves. So I'm going to play 4 videos, and then we'll discuss those 4 videos, because I think it's very important for the viewers who may not be as familiar as we are. So the first one I'm going to play is Holes in the Narrative, which is this video. So it's going to upload.
Can you tell me about the holes in the narrative? May Allah crush you. May Allah crush me as Allah crushed Muhammad by poisoning Muhammad. Can you please tell me about the holes in the narrative?
So for those that weren't able, because it was quite a short clip, it starts with an extremist cursing her and saying, may Allah rid you or get rid of you, may Allah crush you. So it starts with an extremist attacking her. She then raises a picture, a cartoon of Muhammad, and she raises a copy of the Qur'an which has holes in it. And Bob's probably best posed to comment on why she has that, because it was to do with an online conversation where a very well-known Muslim cleric admitted that he believed there were holes in the narrative. On a personal level, if somebody took the Torah and drilled holes in it, I'd be offended. But that's the beauty of Speaker's Corner. You can be offended. Like, I don't know a single Jew that would take a knife to somebody because they drew Moses or because they drilled a hole in our holy books. Maybe somewhere in the world there is some extreme fanatical Jew, but the reason why it's really important here is I will go on to play a number of clips to show the type of violent and extreme reactions that Hatton has received for the type of message that she brings to Speaker's Corner. So I'll just actually, before commenting on that, I'm going to play two more clips. They're not violent, but they are pretty vile in what happened. So the first one is to do with the type of intimidation.
Mom, fuck your
My name
mom.
is Yusuf, but I'm a Jordanian
Fuck your
international.
mom. Fuck your mom. يا ابن الشربوطة يا ابن الشربوطة لعنة الله وعليك 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 لعنة الله وعليك.
You haven't read it? Tell me about it.
You're a disrespectful bitch.
I challenge you, go to France and wear it. I challenge you, go to France and wear it.
So why he's saying go to France and wear that is he believes that she will be killed if she goes to France with a Charlie Hebdo t-shirt, or if she goes to France, which was the t-shirt she was wearing when she was attacked on Sunday. I'm not sure if it was this gentleman. It may have been a different instance, but there was another masked gentleman that actually hit her in the face and knocked her unconscious, as Steve mentioned earlier. I'm going to play one more clip, and then we'll have a quick conversation about the level of hatred and extreme aggression that this tiny little Turkish woman experiences at Speaker's Corner. So let me just see, have I actually got that? So maybe it's this one. Yeah, here we go.
This guy, you're getting disturbed. You guys claim. No. Let me say this. You guys,
if it happened and it's written in Sahih al-Bukhari and in Sahih Muslim, then we believe it. I will spit in your face. Say wife again. Say wife again.
So I uploaded the wrong one, but it was basically Ali Dawah screaming at this little woman, I will spit in your face. I will spit in your face. And so I think, having seen the type of message that she spreads at Speaker's Corner, and then the violent reaction which has resulted in a terror attack on Sunday and an attempt on her life, I think it is maybe a good place to discuss what happens. And maybe, Steve, this is a good one for you because you're not religious, you're an atheist. Maybe you're a good person to speak about what we've just seen.
I mean, firstly, I just want to say one thing Yassim said in the latter moments that he was speaking, that I absolutely agree, and that is that the biggest victim of Islamist violence are Muslims. I've always said that. They are the ones that suffer at these violent scum's hands. So anyway, someone mentioned in the chat earlier, why haven't the police dealt with Hatun? Why haven't the police dealt with her? She's breaking the Public Order Act. Now, what Hatun did last Sunday, Hatun has been doing for weeks, for months, for getting on years. If she was breaking the law in any way, shape or form, do you really think the police wouldn't have arrested her, charged her, and quite frankly thrown her in prison? But they haven't. They have taken her away for her own safety, but never has she been given any charge, conviction, or caution. And that's because she's not breaking the law. as offensive as some people might find what she does and what she says, she is firmly within the law. And the person that's challenged why haven't the police dealt with her mentioned the Public Order Act. Well, if I may, I'm going to read out the section of the Public Order Act which completely makes what Hatun has done week in, week out, completely lawful and completely within the realms of the law. It's a very short section. It's section 29J of the Public Order Act. Anyone can Google it. Just Google section 29J Public Order Act. And what it says is, nothing in this shall be read or given effect in a way which prohibits or restricts discussion, criticism, or expressions of antipathy, dislike, ridicule, insult, or abuse of particular religions or the beliefs or practices of their adherents, or of any other belief system or the beliefs or practices of its adherents, or proselytizing or urging adherents of a different religion or belief system to cease practicing their religion. So in black and white, what she does is completely lawful. The House of Lords inserted that section into the Public Order Act when the hate crimes were introduced 15 years ago, because they were concerned that people could be limited under the hate crime law from ridiculing, challenging, insulting religion. And the House of Lords did something very good that day by inserting this clause. So what Hatun has done is complete within the realms of English law. Now, people literally do not accept that. They don't like that. That's why they take the law into their own hands on Sunday to the extent of trying to murder the poor girl, because simply they cannot accept the British law. And I'm sure, Yassin can tell us how it is an innate aspect of Islamic law that you follow the law of the local land that you live in. So clearly, these idiots, if it was a Muslim, and I do want to say, we don't yet know who the culprit was. We don't know what religion he was. We could all put money on what the probability will turn out to be. But the fact of the matter is, currently, we do not know who it was. But at the end of the day, what she has done is completely within the realms of the law. But there are these violent scum who think they can apply their own diktats, their own Sharia law, their own blasphemy, whatever you want to call it, because they do not accept what is lawful within the English law.
Could I jump in, Joseph?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I would go. Steve's covered the legal point perfectly. I mean, legally, she's not breaking any law at all. She owns the Qur'an that she's drilled holes into. It's her own private possession, and she can do with it whatever she wants. And if people don't like it, they don't have to stand next to her. They don't have to be there. They don't have to give her attention. They can walk away. And some Muslims down at the corner have tried to do that. And if Hatun follows them around, then they can go to the police and say, "Will you stop Hatun following me around, please?" And there's completely legal ways of dealing with what Hatun is doing. And if you find, as I find so much Islamic rhetoric to be hateful against Christians and Jews, if you find speech to be hateful, the best way to defeat it is with better speech. So rather than getting angry, you need to be challenging Hatun for her behavior and defeating her in debate, not trying to kill her. And I can't believe I've got to actually put that into a sentence. But I would go further and say that she's not doing anything morally wrong. She's not doing anything morally wrong. The prophets of the Old Testament destroyed pagan idols. The saints of the Christian church who've destroyed pagan idols. Muhammad himself destroyed pagan idols. And he sent out in Sahih al-Muslim 832, it reads, Urwa ibn Abbasa, that he said to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, "With what were you sent?" He said, "I was sent to uphold the ties of kinship, to break idols so that Allah would be worshipped alone with no partner or associate." And Islam have Muslims for 1400 years have desecrated thousands upon thousands of churches, and thousands upon thousands of Christian artifacts. So Muslims can't complain if someone vandalizes a Quran, given the precedence of the Old Testament prophets, or the precedent of their own prophet, or the practice of Muslims down through 1400 years. The way to defeat something, if you find it hateful, is to defeat it with better speech. And personally, I would never do what Hatun has done, because, you know, I think that the rule of do unto others as you would have them done unto you applies. And I wouldn't want anyone to desecrate a Bible, so I wouldn't desecrate a Quran. And also I see the Quran as a human construct that has been invented by humans. It's part of human history, and it is a significant human piece of literature, and therefore should be respected as part of a world heritage. And so for that reason, I wouldn't desecrate the Quran either. But the appropriate response, so she's not doing anything morally wrong, she's not doing anything legally wrong. And if people don't like it, the way to deal with it is you either move away from her and you don't give her any attention, or you defeat her speech with better speech. But there can be no justification in any way for the way that the Taoists at the park have been treating Hatun for months, and inciting hatred against her, which is the milieu into which this attack has emerged.
I'm just going to jump in. Jason, if you want to reply to this, then I'm going to move us on to the reactions, like what's happened, and then
I have two parts, please. Firstly, in the meantime I'm talking, I want to invite Brother Bob, because he likes to Google stuff. I want him to Google chapter 29, verse 46, and have a read of it. Chapter 29, verse 46 from the Quran. Secondly, I want him to Google for me as well 10 names and locations of churches out of the thousands that Muslims desecrated and destroyed over our history. But prepare for me 10, yeah? In the meantime,
I can do that right now.
No, I'm talking, so just listen, and if you want to do it, you can do it, otherwise you ignore me. Give me 10 churches and locations. In the meantime, take my 200 mosques you transformed in Sicilia into church, and you got Granada, you got everywhere. I don't even need to help you out with that. Now back to my Muslim brothers who are assaulting a woman, a British woman, exerting her right of freedom to speech. If you are a Muslim, you are listening to me. What I have to say, what I'm going to say now is directed to Muslim. If you don't like the law of this country, or you feel that the law of this country is not protecting your religion enough, if you think that what that woman was doing is against your religion, and the English law is not protecting your religion enough, you have to pack your suit and go away from this place. Okay? You have to leave. There isn't a second chance or discussion or even time to waste with people like you. You need to go away, because you came to this country as a guest, whether 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 5 years ago, 500 years ago. This is not a place to where we belong as individuals. We need to tell the truth. We came here because we were allowed to come here for one reason or another. Some of us came here as students. Some of us came here as citizens of former colonies, and the history is long. So you were allowed to come here, yeah? There is a law that is in place in here. If you don't like it, you need to go away. Secondly, if you want to preach the Quran, firstly, you need to have knowledge. You cannot go and preach the Quran and contradict it at the same time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell you, don't discuss with the people of the book except with the good manners. And he told you, don't swear. You saw the boy swearing. That was swearing. The verse I give you to check, it says, don't swear. Don't swear. It is chapter number 6, verse 108. Don't swear to those who call someone beside Allah, because they will swear back at you. Don't do it. So these boys, they contradict the Quran. They are in no position to teach it. They have nothing to teach. That's the first thing I have to say. Secondly, I saw the sister. She was taking a copy of the Quran like this, and with hole on it. Yeah. Brother Joseph, thank you for making the comparison with the Torah. I understand. But I have to tell you something. In the Judaism, you venerate, you respect the body of the Torah, and non-Jew cannot touch it. because you respect the body of the Torah, because this is how it was revealed to you. It was revealed to you in object. For us, the Quran was revealed to us in words. The Quran is a verbal revelation. What you see here, everyone, what you see here, this is not the Quran. This is ink and paper. Wake up, people. This, if you don't read it, if you don't comply, if you don't understand it, if you don't comply with what it says, it is not the Quran. It is ink on paper. We respect it because obviously we respect the word of God. But the respect is not binding to others. The respect is coming from you because you are a Muslim. You believe this is the word of God and you are expected to respect it. But you cannot expect someone who is a kafir, who is a mulhid, who is a non-believer, who have nothing to do with this. You can expect from him to respect it. Just like you can expect from me to respect, I don't know, because mostly respect everything, even if people, they say we don't. So let it be this way. So this is ink and paper. If someone is offended, go back to school. So, third point I want to repeat to Brother Steve. I think I talked about the law of the land. I think I spoke about the Quran. And again, Brother Bob, please stop googling stuff and throwing it at people. It doesn't work. It didn't work over the last 20 years. It didn't stop Islam from growing.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump in and I'm actually going to correct you on one thing, Jason. And that is, it's not that a non-Jew can't touch the Torah. Nobody touches the Torah. When it's handled in a synagogue, we actually use something to, so you'll hold, if you need to touch it, you take a cloth or a talit, a prayer shawl, and you'll use that to touch it. So it's not that non-Jews, nobody can touch it. It's we believe it's a sacred object. And that's why I said I would be horrified if someone desecrated a Torah. But if it was Jewish property, I'd call the police. If it was their property, I just think that I'd be offended. But I can't imagine any Jew in the UK going to the extreme levels of violence that we saw. Also, I'm going to let Bob say, because he's got a finger up like we're at school, which is really polite, good Christian manners. And so what I'm going to do, I'll let Bob respond, and then I'm going to actually take us to some of the reactions from many Muslims that have just been spreading like wildfire on social media.
So I just want to point out, again, Muslims can't complain. The example of their prophet in Sahih Muslim 969, it was reported by Ali ibn Abi Talib said to me, "Shall I not send you with the same instruction as the messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, sent me? Do not leave any image without defacing it, or any built-up grave without leveling it." This is a Sahih hadith of the kind that legitimizes Islamic vandalism that has been perpetrated against Christian places of worship in many areas dominated by Islam, and even places where they're just Muslim vandals. Now he asked me to give him 10 churches. Right, well, here's a list. Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, the Church of the Holy Apostles, the Church of the Pantocrator, the Church of Saint Sergius and Saint Bacchus, the Church of Saint Andrew in Chrysae, the Church of Saint Thecla of the Palace of Blacanay, the Nunnery of Saint Theodosia, the Church, the Cora Church, the Monastery of Studius, the Church of Saint John, the Church of Myrilian, the Catholic Church of St. Paul, the Lips Monastery, the Monastery of Christ Pantopoptis. There you go. That's, I think, maybe 10. It might be more than 10. It could be just shy of 10. I can keep going. There's plenty of others. And it's not just, and that list I've given you was just from Turkey, which up until the genocide against Armenian Christians, Assyrian Christians, and Greek Christians, had a population that was 30% Christian, and then they were butchered, or maybe it was 20%. But either way, we're talking about millions of people and the destruction of those communities and the desecration of those churches. Let's not forget the desecration of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, and the fact that the mosque of the Dome of the Rock was built out of pillaged and ravaged marble from churches in Jerusalem and the surrounding area. So, Muslims are doing what Muhammad did, and so Muslims can't complain if someone desecrates a Quran as because their own prophet has desecrated the sacred places of other religions, pagans, and then sent out Christian Muslims with a command that would lead to the desecration of Christian places. Now, I'm not going to talk for too long. There was a lot of things that were said, and I'm just going to give a Quranic verse, which will probably lead on to what you're going to talk about, Joseph, which is the kind of the vitriol that came out against Hatun after this attack, showing a kind of inhumanity. The thing is, Steve, Joseph, and myself come from a tradition that believes that man is made in the image of God. And therefore, we believe that all human beings are born with an innate dignity that comes prior to any other qualification or factor, including religion itself. But Islam does not share that worldview. In the Quran, it states in Surah 2, Ayah 221, do not marry the unbelieving women until they believe. A slave woman who believes is better than an unbelieving woman. This is the same Quran that goes on to call Christians and Jews the worst of creatures, the worst of creatures. So within the Islamic worldview, there is a pyramid of dignity that goes Islamic free man, Islamic free woman, Islamic slave man, Islamic slave woman, then Christian man, then Christian woman, and Jewish man, and then Jewish woman. They don't have that view that all human beings are made in the image of God. And even as Yassim was talking, and Yassim is evidently a guy with a conscience, he's evidently a guy who's of a sound mind, but even he could not resist calling us kafirs. Kafirs is an insulting term. You might as well have just called a black man the N-word, or an Asian the P word.
How do you call
because
someone
it has
doesn't believe
and
in
once
Jesus?
again he's interrupting, and
How
once
do
again he's
you call someone
demonstrating
that this
poor
is what
manners,
you
and
want and
once
giving it
again
to you?
he's
This is the way.
demonstrating the fact that he does not see us as equals on this panel, and he is demonstrating by his works the fruits of his religion
How do you call
as being a
someone who doesn't believe in
disciple of
Jesus?
Muhammad.
How do you
Because
call someone who
unlike
doesn't believe
him,
in
I did not interrupt him, and as you can see, I don't stop talking when you interrupt me. So the point is, even
you are made
Yassin, there
for.
you
You
go
are a
again, he's
provocateur.
interrupting. So
So
I
I'm
was
giving you,
literally
I'm
just about to
responding to your
finish my point,
provocation.
but now I'm
This is
just going
what
to
you
have to
want.
keep talking,
It makes
and we'll just keep talking over one
Guys,
another like this. But and then
That's
eventually, at some
ask him the
point, I will
question
get to
afterwards.
finish my point.
I'll let you respond.
So even Yassim, who is evidently not a bad guy, couldn't resist calling us kafirs and murtads, or murtads. Forgive my pronunciation. These are insulting terms, ladies and gentlemen. No mistake. He'll translate it as simply unbeliever, but there's emotional connotations connected behind the term kafir. The idea of being ritually unclean, the idea of being less than fully human, the worst of creatures, and so his religion, even when he has a good conscience, still results in a supremacist language, and you all need to wake up to that. And there's a better way of living, I think, and that is living as a disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ rather than living as a disciple of Muhammad.
Okay, brother, thank you for exposing your own ignorance. You just said that the use of word kafir is a pejorative. Obviously, I don't expect from you to understand Arabic because it's a very complicated language. You need to have learned it from childhood.
Can you give me an example where kafir is used as a compliment? Can you give me an example of where you call someone kafir as a compliment?
Yeah. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he says about himself, he's a kafir in verse 60, chapter number 4. Ibrahim,
and he said that as a compliment, did he? What passage, please?
He
passage,
called
please.
himself kafir.
What passage?
It is verse 60.
60.
No, chapter 60.
60, yeah.
Verse number 4.
Verse number 4. We're going to see it as a compliment,
I'll read it
right?
for you in Arabic and you can check it. قد كان لكم أسوة حسنة في إبراهيم والذين معه قالوا لقومهم إنا براء منكم ومما تعبدون من دون الله كفرنا بكم وبدا بيننا وبينكم العداوة والبغضاء أبدا حتى تؤمنوا بالله وحده. Ibrahim, the one عليه السلام, the one who was the father of all the religions, he said, I'm a kafir. So when I am calling you kafir, actually I'm doing you a favor. Because but what I'm trying to explain to you, the word kafir, it's not a pejorative. There was a time when Muslims, they mistreated and they persecuted non-Muslims, but this doesn't mean that the word itself is pejorative. Because if we were going to use that same logic, even the word Jew will be pejorative. Even the word Muslim will be pejorative. Even the word Salafi will be pejorative. We don't judge words based on historical periods or historical behavior. We judge the words based. There's something called etymology. That's why I called you. Come to the classroom. I will teach you. And the way that you can pay me is that I will learn from you as well.
This isn't really the subject I think we're here to discuss, though. It's as interesting as you two might find it.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say the very same thing, Steve. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move us on to some of the reactions of of some Muslims online, which I found absolutely horrifying when I saw. So bear with me. Let me just. Okay, so Hatton deserved it. I don't care. The cuffs, kafir, relevant to the conversation we've just had. The cuffs are cowards. They'll see a few more of these guys getting stabbed, and then they'll shut it. So what this Ms. the Fizz, while I don't believe in cancel culture, I'm sure a few people will be reporting him. What he's effectively saying is that he hopes there's more terror attacks like this, so that people don't insult his religion. And now this is a free country. If someone wants to insult Judaism, Mazel Tov, they're entitled to. And somebody should be able to insult Islam. That's a sincere belief of mine. Next comment. Was that? Yeah. I literally have no sympathy for anyone who insults our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Good riddance, Hatun. So this person thinks Hatun's being killed and is saying good riddance. Next comment. Harmless. Her fame. So this is a response. Her fame among the Paulians, Christians, does harm the layman brothers and sisters. The woman is a trash, and if this country were following Sharia, she'd be gone long ago, and we'd be laughing in your faces. Hatun deserved it. Some of you need to grow a spine. If you think those blasphemous preachers should be dealt with adab and ihtiram, Jassim, you'll maybe need to help me out with what that means after taking us through.
Adab means good manner, ihtiram means respect.
Good manners and respect. Thank you. If so, blasphemous spirit should be dealt with good manners and respect. If you don't agree with me, let me cuss your mum out and ask you to guide me with kind words. So that's actually, this is a crazy comment. So he's saying she deserved it, but the right way to deal with what he describes as blasphemous preachers is good manners and respect. So if your idea of good manners and respect is stabbing someone in the face, we have a very different definition, Total Scott. And so then there were comments on Twitter. There's a few comments from YouTube. This is on Ali Dawah's video, one of Ali Dawah's videos. So Ali Dawah quickly put out a piece to distance himself from the terror attack. You'll actually find that, I believe, and it's where we're going to go to, that there's a certain responsibility on those that are demonized to their huge audiences. I believe has played a radicalizing part in some of this. But anyway, Ali Dawah quickly put out a video, and one of the things he said was because this this terrorist had undone years of dawah work that they'd been doing at the park, that Allah should break his back. And so this was the response from one of his subscribers or one of his followers on his video. Ali, whoever insults the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam deserves worse. So deserves worse than being stabbed in the face. Another person, this was in response to a video of Ali Dawah that was posted on another channel called Sam Dawah. Ali, you don't get to trash the guy with the knife. He did it because they were insulting Muhammad, peace be upon him, on daily basis. And he loves Muhammad, peace be upon him, more than you. So the terrorist loves Muhammad more than Ali. Someone else writes on one of Ali's videos, is Hatun dead? Someone responds, sadly, no. If I was in the park, she would be in hospital long ago for her hate preaching. So that's effectively the just a few. I've got videos as well from the actual incident. Actually, I'll tell you what. Why don't we play the one of those videos, and then we will open up the conversation to the reaction online, which has just been absolutely shocking. So let me just play the. Here we go. One last video.
You did say earlier that she had it coming. So that's kind of, that's what saying don't condone it. That's kind of like
She had it coming. But I said, no, she goes shop me. Yo, it's good. I said she had it coming, bro. And you know the funny thing is, 5 minutes before it happened, dude, why'd you do it? I said, you there. I was like, listen, one thing.
what she did, then you communicate.
She got herself a message.
Why did he say that?
So effectively, what the individual is saying, or maybe it's more than one person, but at least one person saying that Hatun had it coming. She had a terror attack coming. So yeah, what I'll do, I'll now open the Steve. Because there we got a little sidetrack with the Christian Islamic apologetics. I'll let Steve jump in and give his thoughts on the reactions online.
Yeah, I mean it's it's just self-apparent. It's undeniable, instantaneous. You know, whether it was verbally, when the girl was still sitting on the floor with blood coming down her face, it started immediately online. You know, within 1-2 hours, that videos were up on YouTube with banner, you know, with titles, with names that were celebrating the attack. The comments starting. Many of them from names that you would assume are Muslim, people that were self-identifying online as Muslim, some with names that didn't sound Muslim. But the absolute vile hate and encouragement, and that she deserved it, and that she should have more, and that anyone else doing the same should have more, was absolutely vile. And it's bizarre because we've heard so much about these social media platforms censoring people. Well, they're going to have their time on their hands if they were equal and doing it in this, because, you know, there are people who are glorifying terror, there are people who are encouraging terror, and these comments are sitting on these social media platforms. And, you know, the people whose YouTube channels some of these comments are on, you know, if it's your channel, you have the obligation, the legal obligation under the terms and conditions of social media platforms like YouTube, to govern the comments that are made and to delete any comments that are inappropriate. And they're still up there on these people's channels, whatever the people might be saying themselves. But of course, a lot of these Dawa clowns, their first priority is not Dawa. Their first priority is protecting their huge base and their huge income from their monetization of videos. That is their first call. That is their first concern, to protect that. But they're sailing close to the wind by the number of the sorts of comments that they've got. But another aspect of reaction that I'd like to discuss now, whether we come back to this later or whether I cover it now, is the British press and how they've reacted to the situation. Shall I cover that now?
Yeah, and also I had a video of the police and their reaction as well, because I think so. I'll tell you what, Steve, let's come to the police and the press after, but let's deal with the reaction of the Muslim community, not the Muslim community, because most Muslims in the UK are absolutely oblivious to this, but the online followers of these Dawa preachers. So yeah, let's leave it relevant. Bob, you've got your hand up. Why not jump in?
So I mean, I just want to. I know you guys think that I'm running I'm trying to run some kind of sideshow here, but I'm not running a sideshow. What I'm trying to point out to you guys is that within the Islamic literature, there is a supremacist monologue that goes on that you can lift up and you can tune into. Now, it appears that Yassim doesn't buy into that. He's not bought into that kind of supremacist narrative, but it is there in the literature. The people that attacked Hatun have bought into a supremacist, violent narrative that you can construct from Islamic literature, like for the fact that Muhammad had people killed for insulting him, such as Asma bint Marwan. And I can give you the references if you want them, Yasim. So, like, you know, and the idea of striking terror into the hearts of the unbelievers, and the idea that a believing slave woman is better than an unbeliever. And as we saw, the word kafir was being used as an insult by one of these Islamist punks. Now, the point that I'm making is that these people are buying into that narrative. Now, I want to stress, I don't believe that every Muslim buys into that narrative. What I'm pointing out is that that narrative is there to be bought into if you are so attuned. And people like the Dawah team are the soft end of what I think is an Islamist network. And they have incited hatred against Hatun for weeks upon weeks upon weeks on their YouTube channels. They have called her every name under the sun. They themselves, and you've caught it on film yourself, Joseph, they have behaved in an abhorrent, unchivalrous fashion towards her. She's a small woman, for crying out loud. And their fanboys are simply imitating them. Their fanboys. Now, once again, Yasim interrupts, and he's just demonstrating everything that I'm saying. He's demonstrating everything that I'm saying. How many times have I interrupted Yasim when you've given him the floor, Joseph? Not once. But yet Yasim has interrupted me since his arrival every time that I've spoke, because Yasim believes that he is superior to the unbeliever. And he's nodding his head and he's saying yes. His facial expressions are telling you that's what he thinks. And so this is, and thumbs up, there you go. And this is the kind of ideology that we're up against, that even people like Yasim, who won't agree with using violence and who doesn't believe in attacking people with knives, and I'll credit him for that, he still has a supremacist tone to his attitudes towards other people, because that's what his ideology teaches him. And that's what I'm trying to point out to you. So I'm not trying to run a sideshow. And so I find it really hollow that the Dawah team are now trying to distance themselves from the attack, from the multiple attacks against Hatun, but this one being the worst. They're trying to distance themselves from that attack when for weeks and weeks and weeks they have been encouraging vitriol and hatred towards Hatun through their platforms. And I don't think that should be ignored by anyone.
Thank you, brother. Just to change the tone, I want to read your quote here from someone who is not a Muslim and who is definitely respected by all the British people. Sir Alex Younger, former head of MI6, talking about the war against Daesh. He says that Britain is at the forefront of the war because of its ability to bring the war to the heart of the enemy. I quote him, he was saying, they know that the result of being identified as MI6 agent could be their death. However, they do what they do because they believe in protecting their country, the one we are in, and their religion, the one in which I believe. So protecting their country and their religion. While you and me are sitting here having the luxury to have a debate, there are Muslim agents who are risking their life to protect you and me, and you are insulting their religion, but they are protecting also their religion, and that was acknowledged by the former head of MI6 himself, to protect their country and their religion from the evil that Daesh, ISIS, and other terrorist organizations represent. So I don't think you know better than the former head of MI6.
I don't think you listened to what I said.
No,
you didn't listen to what I said, Yasin. But anyway, it'll be a sideshow if me and you get to it. But you didn't listen to what I said.
Okay. I'm going to jump in now then. And so, yeah, in terms of the reactions, I think Steve wanted to also touch on the police. I've actually got a video just so people can see the absurdity of what happened. So Hatun is one woman. She's 5 foot nothing. She's got a she can project her voice, but she's not that intimidating physically. And this is how the police respond to her being attacked, and it's happened on numerous occasions. Sorry, there we go.
One shirt, then I'll have to sort them for you. This one, is it because of the way the cuts are?
I mean, it's absurd. It is absolutely insane that and it's for me, it's one of the most depressing things about our police force in the UK is instead of arresting those that are causing the violence, they go for the person that's easiest to remove. And it happens, the latest one was actually when, again, Ali Dawa and Mohammed Hijab organized a counter protest to the Israeli protest, actually, both Steve and Bob Barat, where we were celebrating the ceasefire, we were celebrating the existence of Israel, the survival of the Jewish state. And Jassim, actually, you were there, but I missed you. We could have all went for a coffee.
So I've been disobedient to my own Qur'an, according to Mr. Bob, because I was supporting the Jews.
And so we were at that, and you had marching up the streets, again, an Islamist thug screaming for the blood of Jews, saying they were going to find some Zionists. We want their blood. We want the Jews. And the police officers just marching alongside him. Why? Because there's there's a mob, and they're worried that if you arrest one of the perpetrators, it could lead to a greater breach of the peace. And I think this happens time and time again at Speaker's Corner. Every time I've been violently assaulted, I've been removed from the park. Now, anyone that knows me knows that I'm not a violent man. And I would say that every time I've been assaulted at Speaker's Corner, it's always by a Muslim, and it's always Muslims that come to my defense. And so this isn't a one shoe fits all, size fits all. There are multiple different groups of Muslims at Speaker's Corner, some of them violent, some of them incredibly peaceful. And every time I find myself slipping into a negative stereotype about Muslims, I think of people like Jassim. I'm not going to name, there's another individual at Speaker's Corner who may be watching this, and his name rhymes with yours. And he's one of the most gentle, kindest people I've ever met. And those that carry out these heinous terror attacks do so in the name of Islam. And those that give zakat, sadaqah, that give charity, that help the poor, that defend me, also do so in the name of Islam. And they just read the religion incredibly differently. So yeah, the police, I think, have handled this appallingly. And the press, Steve, you're probably more qualified to give a better analysis because you've been paying much more attention to it. But yeah, maybe I'll hand it over to you, Steve, to talk about the police and the media.
Okay, well, let's start with the police then, shall we? Because obviously the culprit is the absolute first one that has to be held account for this. But I do personally strongly believe that both the Dawa teams and the police have to be held accountable for what happened on Sunday. The Dawa teams, as you've said, I won't repeat it all, but, their behaviour towards Hatun, their rhetoric over months, absolutely has led to what happened on Sunday. Whether it's them spitting in her face, threatening to spit in her face, pulling chairs away from her, the continual rhetoric about her being a hate preacher, about her being racist, about her needing to be put away. They have to hold some responsibility for this. Their Weasley words that they're coming out with now will not erase our memories of what their behavior and what they've been saying for weeks and months will not be removed. So they have to be held accountable, but also the police. So firstly, I will say, I'm sure it's not gone unnoticed that there was a police car sitting within yards of this offence. And that police car drove forward when it realised something was going on and followed behind the attacker as he ran off, and they failed to catch him. Now, firstly, I want to say, what were the police doing sitting in their car? They always sit in their car, come rain or shine, they sit in their car, not like the previous police officer, PC Steve Barnes, who always was walking around, cycling around, conversing with people, talking to people, building up relationships, building up that community. They sit on their arses in their panda cars. They can't even be bothered to get out. Now, if those police officers weren't sitting on their arses in their car when this happened, maybe they could have prevented it from happening in the first place. Maybe they could have stood a chance of catching this attacker. So that was the police behaviour on the day. But literally, and it comes back to, Steve Barnes built up so much trust amongst all communities at Speaker's Corner, and nothing like this happened on his watch. He retires, and within weeks, we have a near murder happening. The police really need to analyse how they're behaving at Speaker's Corner. The community that was built up, we had the forum that Steve instigated, which unfortunately none of the Dawa teams attended, but we did have one or two Muslims coming, including Paul Williams. That really helped build the community, helped build dialogue, help build the sharing of intelligence and the prevention of crime at Speaker's Corner. Crime plummeted during the existence of that forum, and Steve Barnes should absolutely be proud of being the backbone that achieved that. The police, quite frankly, now, the Royal Parks Police are shameful. They really need to think, what is their purpose? What is their purpose of just sitting in their car all day long? And then they disappear off at 5 o'clock. And we all know, unfortunately, invariably, any trouble, any violence, any fights that break out, and recently these have been more inter-Muslim fights between Shia and Sunni, they always happen 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and the police are nowhere to be seen. And we were told in the past that there was a resource problem, or public funding, underfunding, etc., etc. Well, sorry to bring in lockdown, but during lockdown they managed to find enough resource to police Speaker's Corner to make sure that no one even loitered momentarily to dare speak in Speaker's Corner during whatever level of lockdown. So for the deadly China virus, they can find resources, but they can't find resources to stop violence and now potential murders in Speaker's Corner. So I very much hope the police are going to be thinking about their tactics, and that we'll see a change in the future, and we'll have a return to community policing and proactive policing that can prevent awful nonsense like this happening again.
I'd just like to add one thing, and then I'll let Bob jump in. First and foremost, you probably just got this video demonetized by mentioning the C word. Cheers, Steve.
Oh, sorry.
I would have probably made 23p on this video. That's a quarter of a bottle of water. And I also saw a letter that you shared where someone had written, a regular at Speaker's Corner who'd been going there for 30 years, and had mentioned that a lot of this violence, and I mean, it is clearly documented, is coming from Muslims. And because he said that, he got in. It looked like he got scolded by the police for even mentioning the M word. And we live in such a politically correct culture that you can't actually comment on that. I make one exception: when the EDL, and there's probably going to be a similar patriot type gathering on Sunday, when they come down, there's also violence. But week in, week out, there's Muslim violence at Speaker's Corner, and it's usually Muslim on Muslim, Shia, Sunni is usually. Occasionally it spills out to myself, to maybe Bob. I don't know if they've ever gone for you, but usually it's Muslims attacking Muslims. But if you can't even mention this without being accused of Islamophobia or racism, how's the police supposed to deal with it? It's such a bizarre place to find ourselves, where we can't even mention where this is, because what we're not saying is that Muslims are violent. What we're saying is Speaker's Corner has a problem with extremism, and it's coming largely from the Muslim community. And there are extremists that come there. We've had the BNP there, we've had the EDL there, and I see both of those groups as extreme. And I'm sure Steve maybe has a difference of opinion.
Well, can I just intervene? Because you mentioned there that we might have people coming on Sunday, but can I just stress, and I've tweeted this, and I will continue to tweet it, we don't want anyone turning up on Sunday at Speaker's Corner or any other day who's got any intention of violence. We don't want knuckle draggers. We don't want people from any community, any background, any political background whatsoever who's going to come for a fight or going to come to seek retribution. We do not want vigilantes at Speaker's Corner. So please, I beg anyone of any ilk who wants to come for a fight or wants to come dish out violence, stay away. You're not wanted by anyone at Speaker's Corner. You don't care about free speech. If that's what you come and do, you come and all you care about is violence and retribution. You're not wanted. You're not needed at Speaker's Corner. So stay away.
So I'm pleased to hear that. But I'll let you jump in, both of you. I know both Justin and Bob want to say something. I'll just say one more thing. We're going to do something a little unusual. I've never done this before in the Israel Advocacy Movement. It's a bit of a gamble. But there's a lot of Speakers Corner regulars in the chat screaming, let me on, let me on, let me on. We will actually open up the discussion. We're going to have, after we've just discussed this, we're going to very briefly touch on responsible. Who was responsible for the terror attack? Obviously, the scumbag that carried out the attack. But I believe it's not an isolated event. And I'd like to give some examples. We'll close that conversation. Then any of the panel that wants to remain and talk to the Speakers Corner regulars, you're more than welcome to stay on. Anyone that wants to go to bed, see their families, is completely understandable as well.
One thing I didn't touch on then that I wanted to touch on is the media.
Media, yeah.
Shall I
do you want to quickly do the media and then we'll let
yeah. Because I probably will leave when you open it up. Well, we'll see how it goes anyway. But the media, I think we cannot have this live stream without commenting on the media and their response or lack of. In terms of TV news, as far as I'm aware, the only coverage has been 10 minutes on GB News last night. They have made no reference to the subject whatsoever all day today. As far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware. BBC London, I understand, last night spent 5 seconds on it. Literally, a woman was stabbed at Speaker's Corner. I think very little more was said of that. So that's the sum total of what our TV news media. Most of the news websites have included small items on it, but they've all been headed "Woman with Charlie Hebdo T-shirt was attacked." Not gone into who she is, what her background is, what she does there, any of the detail or any of the history whatsoever. Now, I've written articles on this. I've tweeted links to these articles. I've contacted media organisations via Twitter. I've tweeted news organisations. Let's not exaggerate it. I don't think they've got the excuse not to know about it. And I think the absolute lack of coverage and lack of detailed coverage stinks to high heaven. And as people have said, if the shoe had been on the other foot, we know how the media would have reacted. I'm not going to, but I could give examples of other cases in recent history in this country where something has happened in the opposite direction in terms of community on community violence or alleged violence that have been turned into media frenzies. Yet, as we said, a small woman who's never physically threatened or intimidated anyone gets slashed in the face, attempted murder, a terrorist attack, and it's just dribs of our media. Yet we look over to the other side of the world, and I tweeted a link to this earlier. Sky News in Australia, which anyone that knows about it will appreciate, it's very different to Sky News in the UK, did a very, very thorough piece on it. And actually, it covered it in as much detail as we've covered it in tonight, particularly in terms of the history and the previous attacks on Hatun Tash. So if a media organisation, the other side of the bloody world, can go into the detail and give a detailed of what exactly happened, an analysis of that, why the hell can our own media not do that? Now, if that is not a serious problem that we need to think about and analyze, I don't know what is. What are they so intimidated? Is there a D notice? Has a D notice been issued by the state on this subject? Because it amazes me the fact that GB News started to go into it yesterday, and today they've been absolutely silent on it, and no other TV channels have touched it, local or national. Something's going on here, whether it's a D notice from the state, which will mean you'll probably be getting another strike, Joseph, for this thing, although they seem to be leaving YouTube alone for now. There's something seriously wrong in our society. I know we all live in our bubbles and etc., but this is a matter that's of relevance beyond anyone's bubble, surely to goodness. And as we've said, most British Muslims won't know about this. Any other community will not know about this because our media are not talking about it.
Cool. So okay. I was going to say I'll let the others jump in, and Bob's got his hand up, so why not, Bob?
I mean, I'm going to echo Steve's comments to some degree, but maybe give some examples and to try and move the conversation forward, because I think it's been well established now that there's a double standard in the way that these things are policed, in the way that these things are reported. And so to try and move the conversation forward, rather than us in ad nauseum repeating again and again, look at the double standard, look at the double standard, look at the double standard, I want to maybe suggest something that everyone can do to stop challenging, changing the double standard. So to give you an example of, I fear that the police are becoming increasingly politicized. I also fear that that's happening in our courts. I think they're being politicized by a liberal progressive ideology that is anything but just, righteous, or fair. And I think there are serious and deliberate attempts to politicize both the police and the courts. And we have activist judges who are and activist police officers who are basically applying the rule of law through a certain ideological spectrum. And some examples that I would give to that, regardless of what you think of Tommy Robinson, whether you like him or you don't, when he was campaigning politically in a democratic election to be elected democratically, a Muslim mob was marched by the police to where he was having a political rally, not an estate where these people lived. And they then proceeded to attack the political rally, hurling scissors and bricks and bottles at women and children. Now, completely condemnable behavior. And I know there's lots of good Muslims that will also condemn that. I include Yassim amongst them. But the reality is the police marched this mob to the place so that they could harass and attack politically. Now, how the heck does that happen? You've also got the fact that we all know damn well that if a Muslim woman, God forbid that it should happen, and I mean that with the fullness of my heart and soul, but if a Muslim woman was attacked by a Jew or a Christian for clearly religious motives, it would be on the news for days, and we would be getting lectures about Islamophobia through our politicians, and just some examples, like the burning down of churches in Canada, the burning down of churches in France. If the same number of mosques had been burnt down in Canada or France, it would be a news topic for weeks, and there'd be lectures and debates and discussions about Islamophobia. So why aren't we talking about Christophobia? We're not talking about Christophobia because the liberal elites have an ideological blind spot. And that ideological blind spot confuses three categories. It confuses the adherent of the religion with the religion itself, and then overlays that with a racial dynamic. And because the majority of Muslims come from an ethnic minority, the liberal progressives, who for the most part are upper middle class white folks, who've never had a black or an Asian friend, they fetishize those communities. They feel that those communities can do no wrong, and they have this kind of patronizing, inverted racism, believing that these communities can't be held to the same standard as everyone else, and that they must be protected in a special way. And so they talk about Islamophobia. But if I criticize the Catholic Church, which lots of people do, and I have done myself, no one accuses me of Catholophobia. If I criticize communism, nobody accuses me of commiphobia. If I criticize Hinduism, no one accuses me of Hinduphobia. And there are plenty of people who criticize the Christian faith. They are not accused of having a phobia. But if you criticize Islam, if you criticize Muhammad, if you do the thing that Hatun does, and she's never incited hatred against Muslims, ever, not once. In fact, she's the most adamant person that says that you should love Muslims, and I agree with her. But she is accused of being an Islamophobe. And that is the reason why these things don't get the same coverage that they do. It's because of this ideological blind spot. The police are governing us by the rule of the mob, and they are doing so because the ruling elites are spineless, cowardly, conflict-averse, middle-class folk who don't want to and can't envision how you would tackle a consolidated geographical community, which is what we've got with the Muslim community, into which there is only a tiny percentage of radicals. I would say, a guess, maybe 2 or 3%. But that tiny percentage of radicals is concentrated in number. And then there's degrees of separation that move out from this tiny degree of radicals, to which there are people that have leanings towards degrees of how much they buy into the same radical narrative. And when these are consolidated communities, it makes them very hard to tackle and very hard to challenge. The British government and the Western world is following a policy of poisoning the lake so that it becomes inhospitable to the fish being the radicals, the lake being the wider Muslim community. It will not work. As Yassin pointed out earlier in the conversation, and as all the research has pointed out from Pew Research and from many others, radical ideology is gaining traction amongst Muslim communities. It isn't losing its traction amongst Muslim communities. It's still a minority, but it is a growing minority. And the reason for that is because the strategy that we're following doesn't work. The Dawah team have incited hatred against Abu Layth up in, I think it was Bradford or Birmingham, I don't know where he is, Mufti Abu Layth. His house was attacked. They've incited hatred against Hatun. They tried to kill her this Sunday. They incited hatred against Cosmic Skeptic. Now, thankfully, he's not been attacked. But can anyone else see a correlation? And I know that correlation doesn't equal cause. I'm fully aware of that. But can anyone? But sometimes it does. Now, the media itself, that buys into this liberal progressive echo chamber, has demonstrated its double standards by, for instance, the way it covers persecution of religious minorities. Christians in Burma have been persecuted for far longer than the Rohingya Muslims were persecuted. They've suffered ethnic cleansing, just like the Rohingya Muslims have suffered, but the British media haven't gone on about it. Christians in Nigeria have been killed in their thousands by Islamists. The media aren't talking about it. And I've mentioned Canada and I've mentioned France. So what can we do about this double standard? Well, the first thing we can do is we can start talking about it. The second thing that we can do is whenever we meet one of these liberal types with their progressive crap, you basically have just got to challenge them on their hypocrisy and to challenge them forcefully on their hypocrisy. And when they want you to talk about their agenda, rather than buy into that and talking about their agenda, you force them to hear your agenda. And that is how you start to change this situation.
Okay, so I'm going to let Jassim jump in now, because
Yeah.
and also,
Sure.
Jassim, congratulations. That was the longest you went without jumping in. Kola kavod.
Well done, Yassim.
Yeah, you know why? Because there was no misquoting of the Quran or Hadith. That's why I kept quiet, because this is the only
There was no misquoting either earlier.
Anyway, but I'm old enough to remember that before the dust of Twin Towers settled, there were some suited people who speak good English. They are Americans or English people or whatever, educated, who came to the television and started preaching the Western audience about the war between the clash of civilization and the risks, the danger of Wahhabism. That was like within 3 hours, I remember. If I have the technology, I can go and retrieve all these things and show you. So unfortunately, since then, what I heard today, I'm not, you won't find me normally, I think Joseph knows me now for 2 years. He never heard my voice. It was like this. What I experienced today was just horrific, because not impersonal to the gentleman who is supporting his own views about Christianity and the danger of Islam and stuff. But what I heard was horrific. It gives me no hope on the future, because as long as there are people who are not sincere about stopping terrorism, because this is what we are facing. We are facing a wave of terrorism. It is the sixth generation of warfare. This is, like talking about 3G, 5G, 4G. This is the sixth generation of warfare, and this is what we will have in the coming decades. We won't go back to the tanks and airplanes. This is the way will be fought between nations in the coming decades. And until there are people who are not aware that this has to be stopped before it gets to every house, every street, every country, every breathing human being, and as long as there are people who are not aware about this, we will carry on like this. Because the problem between my extremists, the ones who I consider my brothers, because they are still my brothers, even if they are extremists, I'm not gonna deny them Islam like they deny it to me. Like they will call me Murtad because I have picture carrying the flag of Israel. But I won't call them Murtad. For me, they are Muslim because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. You understand? It's Allah who knows who is a Muslim, who is not. That's what the Qur'an says. I can recognize my extremists. I can recognize my chicken. When I look to the cow, I know who are my extremists, and I know how to confront them. And the least that they can do to me is just to cut my throat. That's the maximum they can do to me. But even cutting my throat, they're not gonna change the truth. They're not gonna silence this da'wah. This da'wah going the real da'wah, not the one you see in the park. The da'wah that have been going for the last 1,400 years. They're not gonna stop it by cutting my throat or cutting or stabbing someone else who is not Muslim and who is preaching against Islam. So this is the problem. My problem is that with the other side, who are suited, nice-looking people, they speak good English, and they are in their country. They know what they are talking about. They know the laws. They know the behaviors. They know history better than us, because most of us, we are foreigners. Let's face it. We came from somewhere else. I keep saying it. I'm not shy to say it. So this is not our culture. This is something we are learning, and we are adopting, we are accepting, we're trying to integrate with. So these people who know all these things and start making this articulated speeches and giving you evidence from history and from the reason and from theology and from philosophy, and they know how to talk about politics, and they know the same. When the brother was talking, I was listening, because I think I learned a lot from what he said, even if I disagree with what he was going to. But the elements he was putting in his talk were amazing. For me, this is science. I was taking knowledge. The problem is, like, just like Muslims take one verse from the Quran and don't take the other to kill someone, because the Muslims who went to stop this lady, if they read chapter number 4, verse 140, it tells them explicitly not to stand when they are mocking the Quran. Chapter 4, verse 140. You need to go away. So just by being in speaker corner, you are committing an offense against your own laws, the laws that you want to implement, the laws that you want to impose to people. You are the first one not respecting it. So I don't want to stay here to preach, because honestly, what I like about the Jews that they don't take non-new applicants. I'm dreaming of the day we will come to that point. We stop taking new applicants and we show the door to anyone who wants to leave. Door open. You want to become ex-Muslim? I help you to become ex-Muslim. You want to become Muslim? I don't know how do you become Muslim. Go and ask Allah to tell you how to become Muslim. I'm not going to teach you. Everything is there in the books, in the internet, and so. But I'm not going to give you that. I'm not going to invite you to Islam. We need to get to this point. If you read my blog this morning, what I said, did we get to the time that we need to close our mosques? The brother who was telling me that we are taking churches, what I just written this morning, you can go and check it. It's not like I make it up. I posted like at 9 o'clock in the morning. After I went through the French situation, and all this building up to the elections and shutting mosques and deporting imams. What I did right, I say we need to be creative now, because this is not going to change. There will be no day that people, they will pick up and they will say Islam is beautiful, Islam is nice religion. And there will be no day that all Muslims will wake up and they will be following the right path and the wisdom. Don't even look for it. It's not going to happen, because we are 2 billion and there are a lot of implications that led us to this situation. There will be no day that we will get of all Muslim extremists. Just forget it. It's like COVID. You have to live with it. You know, you need to learn how to live with it. So that's why I say, is it time to start closing our mosques? Because they want to start deporting imam. They want to impose their own views of Islam. They want this, they want that. Okay, close the mosques and pray at home, because Allah will forgive you. You don't have to have a mosque. This is the beauty of our religion. I don't have to have a mosque. So close the mosque, and within 10, 15 years, the French government, they will come to you begging for you to open the mosque, because they cannot deal with the kids in the streets, because you can't talk to them. If you raise your voice on your child, social services, they will take them away, or they will put you in jail. There are no imams to talk to them. There are no Islamic schools. They don't study Arabic. How are you going to deal with them? We already tried this formula in France over the last 30 years. It didn't work. You didn't change Ali and Omar and Abdullah to Jack and John and Jacob. You don't change people's mind. Look at what happened to the Jewish people. They've been reduced to the half of their population within a decade. Did they manage to remove Judaism from their heart? What it did to them? They just made Judaism better because of persecution. Well, this is what persecution does to Muslims. This is what you have people like, you see, I'm no one. I'm just like last comer. You know why I'm here? Just by coincidence. It's just because I picked up a Jewish couple in my cab, and they were scared of me because I looked like this. That's why I'm here. I never been in social media before. I opened my Twitter account in September 2018. Because this Jewish couple, they were scared of me because of my beard. So I want to study to understand why they are scared of me. Alhamdulillah, now I have more than 1,000. Alhamdulillah, now I found more than 1,900 followers. Most of them are Jews. Most of them are Yahud. They are my brothers, my sisters. I will die for them. I will give my life for them. I'm not even lying.
Alhamdulillah.
So what I'm saying, I will go to sleep sad tonight. Trust me. What I heard is heartbreaking, and this is not the way. I'll finish quickly. If anyone wants to preach if anyone wants to criticize Islam, bring it on. Bring your evidence. Bring your books. If you are not able to write a 2,000-word article, don't write a tweet. If you are an intelligent man, if you can't convert your tweet against Islam into 2,000 words with references, don't tweet it. Keep it for yourself, because you're not going to achieve nothing with hatred. That's all I have to say. And I'm so sorry that I raised my voice. I shouldn't have to. And I apologize. I was excited, because I know the setting of this kind of talks. Someone come and throw a verse at you, and you have to throw another verse. This is exactly to become like a ping pong. He tell me, oh, this hadith say this, it hadith say that. So I'm not going to do this again. I just came because I love Joseph.
So I love you too, Yassim. And it's one of the things I would say is people like Bob, Steve, myself, we're used to being in the trenches. When we engage in religion and Speaker's Corner, it's usually not a pleasant conversation. And so you've got two people of a very different worldview. Jasmine, you're looking to build bridges, to work on the issues within your own community, whereas Bob, Steve, myself, we're much more out there, often clashing with people that want to do serious harm to us, as we saw on Sunday. And so I think one thing you mustn't lose sight of is all of this conversation has taken place in the wake of a terror attack against somebody that we know, almost certainly carried out for religious reasons. And for that reason, what I'm going to do, I'm going to play two videos, one screenshot. Steve, you're welcome to jump off. Sabida, who's a Speaker's Corner regular, is in the lobby waiting to be let in. So I'm going to quickly play two videos. Then we'll wrap it.
I can go and let anyone who wants to come in. I can watch from the lobby.
Yeah. We've got enough space for everybody. We can host many people.
No, but is it anybody? Thank you so much. I will just follow you, and I will carry on with my writing because I have an assignment to be handed over within weeks. Okay.
Okay.
Brother, please forgive me. I didn't mean to offend you, and there's nothing personal. It's just like I love my prophet so much that I cannot listen to falsery and keep quiet. Thank you so much.
I'm not in any way offended, Yassim, and you've got to understand my motives, mate. I am my case is built on the evidence. If the texts weren't there to be used, the Islamists wouldn't be using them, and neither would I. The fact that they are there is the problem. And the reality is that in my head, there's a very clear distinction between Islam, the ideology as found in its texts, and Muslims. And I take Muslims as I find them, which means that I know good Muslims and I know Muslims who are neither here nor there, and I know Muslims who are dickheads. And it's kind of like, you know, I take them as I find them, like I take you as I find you. You know, but the texts of Islam and Islamic history speak for itself, and Christians have been on the blade end of that for 1400
Brother, we didn't
years.
ask you to become Muslim, did we?
So, but I am inviting you to become Christian.
No, I won't. Thank you, because I'm already more Christian than you.
And I'm inviting any other.
I am already more Christian than you.
And I am inviting.
What is it in Christianity that I don't have in Islam?
I'm inviting. You know, I'll give you someone.
Okay, guys, and before we start inviting each other to each other's religions, I'm going to jump in and play a video.
Okay.
Before Steve gets on with atheism, and then we're all. So let me just play a quick video. So this is. I want to now just wrap up this whole conversation with a couple of videos for why I think the attack happened. So for those that don't know, Hatun, who have just arrived, Hatun was born Muslim and she converted to Christianity. And so this is Ali Dawah speaking about another convert from Islam, this time to atheism, to convert to atheism, an apostate. So this is Ali Dawah.
Religion and cause corruption in the land by spreading it, the capital punishment in Islamic law would be applied to you. We have no doubt, and we're proud of that. Yeah.
So what he's saying that if you leave Islam, the capital punishment is death. And Jassim, I know that you don't have to just like. No, I know that you and most.
He's talking about the punishment of it's called Hadd al-Haraba. You know, the high road robbery. That's what he's talking about.
He's talking about a person we know. If I don't know him personally, but we follow each other on Twitter. Apostate Prophet, and Apostate Prophet left Islam, and as a consequence, Ali Dawah made a video saying that if it was an ideal Sharia state, that he would be put to death. We've got a couple of people in the lobby, so I'll play one more video. Actually, before I play a video, I'm going to quickly share a screenshot. This is another Dawah channel video. And what's beautiful about this is up until 24 hours ago, the video was called Warning to Hatun Tash, Speaker's Corner. And in this was, again, another video inciting violence against those that insult the Prophet of Islam. He then, whoever owns this channel, and it's based in the UK, it says so on the YouTube, quickly changed the title, because it's not speaking about Hatun, it's just an Islamic preacher speaking about what you a particular instance where somebody insulted Muhammad, if I remember the video correctly. They renamed the video from Hatun, from a warning to Hatun Tash, that a dog defends Prophet Muhammad. And so
can I just add,
please give more context. Perfect.
Yeah, the having listened and watched that video, and as you can see, it was only a very, very short video, as you say, and as the screenshot there previously said, warning to Hatun Tash. The content of that video, whoever that guy is, was describing how the appropriate punishment for insulting the Prophet Muhammad is to rip someone's throat out. That's precisely what the short content was. Insult the Prophet, have your throat slashed. And to give that title, and I think the video was put up 3 or 4 weeks ago from memory. So 3 or 4 weeks ago, before a guy attempted to slash Hatun's throat, this video was put up. And can I say, if you look at that, so the video's still there, but as you say, the title's been changed. But just have a look at the thumbnails and the other faces that many of you will recognize on the other videos on that channel. Very interesting faces appear on it. I won't name any of them now.
Yeah, and so sorry, I just got distracted by some comments. Yeah, for me, it's absolutely, literally, a few weeks later, that very same act of violence is carried out for the reason that this person has posted the video. If this video is not being reviewed by the police. I don't know what to say. It's staggering. I think we've just lost Jason, which is fine. What I'm going to do, I'm going to play one final video, then I'm going to bring... Yeah, he's back. I'm going to play one final video, and that is, it's not actually who's responsible, but it's a very, very, very telling clip. So let me just share this one video, again, from our friend Ali Dawa.
Little kid who's, I don't know for what reason, I don't even know if you're planted. I'll be honest with you, bro, I'm going to think you're a spy. You're planted. How are you coming here in a phobe with a knife, going directly to this woman and trying to stab her or do whatever?
Now, the reason I'm playing this video is it would appear that Ali knows who this person is because he mentioned his age. Now, my understanding was the person who carried out the attack was wearing a mask. And so that, for me, I don't know if anyone else had seen this video, but that just, like, do people in Speaker's Corner know who this person that carried out the attack was?
That's an incredibly good point, Joseph, and I'd not picked up on that. Yeah, he was in a mask. He was hooded all day. How would anyone know his age? I also struggle to believe that no one in the corner knows the identity of that person. But again, we know how those individuals at Speaker's Corner behave as a community. Their interpretation of the religion is that you don't dob your Muslim brother in it, whatever the crime. And we've seen that. We've seen real examples of that time and time again. So I struggle to believe that none of them know anything that could wouldn't help the police in identifying this individual.
I do like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Ali's just saying, like, only a young kid, but it was such a precise number. It was a very, very bizarre comment to have made. So if anyone at Speaker's Corner does know who this person is, go to the police. Do it anonymously, however you do it like, because the next attack, if someone loses their life, their blood is on you. And I don't care what your religion teaches. There is no justification for keeping this information from those that can prevent another terror attack. Bob, you want to jump in?
Well, I'm just gonna defend Ali. To me, I looked at the same videos that everybody else did, and I assumed that this person was a young guy. So I don't actually think. I think that the majority of people that come down there are kind of young to 30s kind of people. So I think Ali is speaking into a context. So I'm just putting that out there, that I think he's probably making the kind of assumption that most of us would have made given that situation. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Okay, so I hope you're right, and yeah, I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt as well. In Judaism we have a concept of judging people favorably, and I would, in this situation, hope that Ali doesn't know who the individual.
I do want to point out though something to back up what Steve said, is that time and time again though, this little troop of Dawists at the corner, on much more minor assaults and much more minor crimes, have repeatedly shuffled the person away who's committed the offence, or when the police have got involved, have come forward trying to blame the victim. They did that with, they tried to do it with me when I had that little handbags at dawn moment with Afghan Mo, after he tried to go full Taliban on my foot. And he jabbed my foot with an umbrella, and I ended up clipping him around the face with a book. And they went to the police, and you got the fat sheikh, and I'm not talking about a milkshake there. Who basically went to the police, and he'd said I'd been harassing him. And then we showed the clip where I just basically asked him if he would like to answer a certain question. He said no, and then he walked off, and I left him alone. But he went to the police, and he tried to make it out that I'd been harassing him, and he had to try and tell me repeatedly to leave him alone. And it wasn't. It was one tiny little event that was over in like a minute. And they will do that at every single time that there's any kind of conflict. they sort of gang up and they basically make up false testimony against anyone who is the victim of the violence of their little group.
And if I could quickly give one other quick example of that, and that is Mr. Mohammed Arhad, also known as Abu Qasim, who was, I'll use the term gentleman, who used to be one of the Dawa team's cameramen, and who used to regularly go for dinner with them after the day at Speaker's Corner, who's currently sitting in Belmarsh, having been convicted under the Terrorism Act. So, you know, it is not unknown for very concerning people to be part of these networks.
So if I remember correctly, he was Al Qaeda Daesh's website was recruiting for. It was insane. But anyway, I'm going to bring in Zabida because I know that she's been desperate to get in. Anyone that wants to drop off is welcome to. We've already hit nearly 2 hours, so no offense is going to be taken. So I'm just going to bring in Zabida. Zabida, welcome. You've been on the channel before.
Thank you for having me on. I've been waiting very patiently. I just want to make a disclaimer. There is a fake Zubayd al-Arabiya live streams in the chat, which is praising the attack on Khartoum, which is not me, by the way. Somebody that's trying to obviously cause issues. So yeah, I have a few questions for Bob, particularly as a Christian. You said everybody has the right to criticize Islam, and you know I agree to a certain extent. I feel like you know, for those who don't understand Islam, if Islam is an alien religion to somebody and they might not understand certain concepts, might not agree with certain concepts, of course they have the absolute right to ask questions, to even critique in a civilized manner. But I don't think that's that's not what Khartoum has been doing. Khartoum has been very aggressive in the way that she has, you know, tried to critique Islam. I don't think drilling holes in a book is a critique of a religion. You're specifically going out of your way to offend this particular group. I don't think coming to Speaker's Corner with a T-shirt of the Holy Prophet of 1.8 billion people is critiquing Islam. So I don't like the way that this whole narrative has been spun, that she's just a intellectual, academic, great debater, you know, who knows how to carry a conversation, which is not the case. She has bombarded many of the Dawah team. When you spoke about her, I think it was Steve saying that, you know, getting thrown off the chair. If you actually look at that footage, right, most of the Dawah team have unanimously agreed to ignore her. They've decided to give their backs to her. They do not want to engage with her. And she, in that footage, went out of her way to go to Ali Dawah's stall, grab his property, right? And so he moved the chair, which ended up her falling down on her bottom, right? So again, this whole narrative, this is just an innocent Christian lady that's coming there to critique Islam, is not the case. She's gone out of her way to provoke, antagonize. This is somebody that's already received quote unquote death threats, already got slapped in Speaker's Corner, and yet she keeps on coming back for more. I don't know if this is something that she wanted or something that, you know, suits her agenda. I'm not agreeing with the person, what he did to her, but unfortunately, I hope people recognize if you are a provocative, controversial character, and you are pushing the buttons when it comes to certain peoples, unfortunately, things like this happened. It's happened in the past to many political figures. Even presidents have been assassinated because of their policies. And I feel like she set herself up to be a target, and unfortunately has resulted in this. And my last thing is, you know, the fact that it's being blamed on Muslims and Islam, I think is completely unfair. So you as a Christian, how come you haven't condemned her actions as much as you want to condemn the Muslims' actions for retaliating? How come you as a Christian who preach love thy neighbor, who say that Jesus is such a pacifist person who sat down with beggars and prostitutes, how come that level of compassion and mercy that Jesus has is not emulated in her behavior?
Am I all right to reply, Joseph?
Yeah. I was going to jump in, but yeah, I think it was addressed.
No,
to
you jump in first, so it's your show, and then I'll.
No. It was addressed to you, Bob. So
I have to go, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay, Yasim, get in touch with me, bro. I'd like to talk to you.
I'll connect the two of you. I'll connect you both.
Thank you. So, Zabida, I'll hope you'll pay me the same courtesy that I paid you. I listened very carefully to everything that you said, and I didn't interrupt. So please pay me the same courtesy. So, I mean, we've all got to just acknowledge an obvious fact. Hatton is a shock jockey. I think the fact that she wants to evangelize Muslims and the fact that the Dawah team have chosen to give her back has meant that she has used shock as a way of engagement, which is her right within a democratic society. And the thing is, if you don't like the kind of shock tactics that she uses, your choices are to ignore her, or your choices are to defeat her speech with better speech and to ridicule her approach. That's what you should be doing. It shouldn't be what you've just done, Zabida, which is to create a false equivalence between attempted murder and drilling holes in a book, which is what you tried to do. You tried to blame the victim by saying that in some way she perhaps wanted to bring this on herself, or that perhaps she wanted to make herself the victim, you know, and you've created a false equivalence there, which is quite telling of your worldview. And I find it quite sad. The reality is that there is absolutely zero justification for attempted murder, and that's what we saw on Sunday. And it does not matter what Hatun did. She did not do anything that was illegal. That was her property. She can do with it what she damn well pleases. I actually don't agree from the perspective of wisdom, from the perspective of utility, from the perspective of, you know, do unto others as you would have done unto you, about drilling holes in the Quran. I wouldn't do it myself, but she isn't doing anything legally wrong, and she isn't doing anything morally wrong either. The Old Testament prophets destroyed idols. The saints of the church destroyed idols. Hatun simply sits in that line. And Muslims cannot complain about this disrespect to the Quran, because for 1400 years, Muslim communities have been desecrating churches, they have been desecrating religious icons, and Muhammad himself instructed, and I read the hadiths earlier, instructed that the religious symbols of other religions should be defaced. He sent Muslims out with that instruction, and I read the hadiths. Muhammad himself desecrated a pagan temple, not just one, but two of them, the Kaaba, and then he sent out a party to go and destroy another pagan house. So Muslims can't complain. Muslims, remember, your earliest Muslims burnt fragments of the Quran and burnt copies of the Quran. In 1924, the Muslim government of Egypt took a whole bunch of the Qurans and sunk them in the I think it was the River Nile. So you just have zero grounds to complain morally. In this democratic, secular, liberal society, all of our religions are mocked. Remember the crucifix in a vat of piss? Remember the Bible up in Glasgow, where people were encouraged to graffiti in front of it and to graffiti on it as a work of art? You know, we Christians have had to endure this. There's nothing special about the Muslim community, and you don't deserve special rights. Now, the reality is, I don't agree with what Hatun did to that Quran. But she didn't do anything morally wrong, and she didn't do anything legally wrong. And to simply to try and create an equivalence between her legal and moral actions of drilling a hole in the Quran with attempted murder demonstrates, Zabida, how Muhammad has failed your thinking. Because, you know, compare the vitriol and the celebration of the attacks of this attack against Hatun that Muslims have done, and based on, you know, Muhammad's own example of killing people and having people killed who mocked him, with Christ's words, where he said, "Bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you." This is the moral example that we should be following. You know, and which is to expand the boundaries of your love so that they can encompass your opponents. Hatun is using props for her evangelism. If you don't like the props, just ignore her evangelism or ridicule her approach. I don't wear a Charlie Hebdo t-shirt myself. The reason why I won't wear a Charlie Hebdo t-shirt is because it mocks the Christian faith. Charlie Hebdo mocks the Christian faith. So I don't agree with wearing a Charlie Hebdo t-shirt for that reason, because I don't want to advertise that despicable magazine that mocks my religion. But I wouldn't call for the killing of anyone at Charlie Hebdo. I wouldn't nor would I call for an attack against anyone who wears one of the Charlie Hebdo front covers that mocked the Christian faith. And
So
I'm sorry, you're just
can I
trying to
respond, Bob,
placate
because you made a
that
lot of
kind
points
of
there, and I'm
that,
trying
that
to.
attitude.
I'm trying. Sorry, you finished. I want to
Yeah,
respond, but there's a lot of
I
points
was
you've made there.
finishing. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, like I said, I don't justify the attack. I've actually publicly spoken out against the attack and said, this is completely wrong. It's not a part of our Islam as much as you think it is. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. Second of all, you've clearly identified that the Muslim Da'wah team has actively tried to avoid her, and she's been persistent in trying to, like you said, give them some sort of shock value, and has gone as far as going against her own principles as a Christian, as you've clearly identified, by wearing a t-shirt by a magazine who has insulted your own Jesus. So you need to realize that maybe this person is not a good representative of Christianity or Christians, and is causing as much damages to the Muslims as she is to the Christian faith and identity, because you have clearly said you wouldn't wear a t-shirt Charlie Hebdo, because Charlie Hebdo has not only mocked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but has mocked Jesus. But this is somebody that's willing to go against the disrespect of her prophet or her God, whatever she calls him, in order to disrespect Muslims. The second point is when you speak about we should be allowed to mock Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not long ago in this country, if you were to blaspheme Jesus, you'll be called a heretic and you'll be burnt at the stake. So let's not act like this is an inherently Muslim issue, because Christians were also doing the same. But what I find with Christians, with all due respect, have become very liberal and almost cocky-like to an extent, because Jesus, peace be upon him, has become open season when it comes to mainstream media. When it comes to mockery, they've made some outrageous cartoons and depictions of Jesus, peace be upon him. But for some reason, the Christians have become liberalized and lenient and have allowed this to happen, but Muslims will not. That does not mean we will resort to violence, because her rhetoric, whether you realize it or not, does lead to the incitement and the hatred towards Muslims. She, as a Christian, has decided to align herself with somebody like Tommy Robinson. And one thing that Hartoon and Tommy Robinson both have in common is that they are both very divisive, whether they're trying to divide races or religions. Her rhetoric is divisive in this country. It's causing hatred between Muslims and Christians, which I don't hate Christians. I don't agree with the ideology, but I'm not dedicated enough to make a mockery and disrespect Jesus, as a living, because I'm not told to do that. The Quran clearly says, do not mock other people's faith, so that they do not mock your faith. So I hope that you, as a Christian, at least you've been a bit sincere and admitted that, you don't agree with her actions. You wouldn't particularly do it because you have your own moral principles. But unfortunately, as Muslims, any terrorist attack that happens, Muslims are compelled to condemn it, to the point where the news ends up turning up to mosques and dragging the imams out to publicly condemn it. Now, I want to ask, I've condemned personally. Ali Dawah was condemned, whether you think he has or not. Muhammad Hijab, Shamsi, all the senior Dawah people in the park have condemned this action of violence that happened to Hartoon. But I've never heard any of you condemn what she's doing and tell her, look, what you're doing is a bit too much here, right? So, as much as you, just last point, let me just finish up there. As much as you guys, I've seen you debate, Bob, and for the most part, you have a mannerism and you can speak in a civilized manner. What she's doing, whether you realize it or not, is giving Christians a bad name. She is also inciting hatred towards Christianity, because you see the way that the guy stabbed her. Unfortunately, people are going to associate with Islam, and people are also going to associate her bigotry to Christianity. And if none of you call it out, then it's going to cause more problems.
So one of the things I'd like to jump in and say is just pick up on a few things you said, Zabida. One of the things I've seen consistently from the Dawists, not every Dawist, but many of the Dawists, when it came to condemning, it was like the old racist line. I'm not racist, but it's like, I condemn the act, but, and there's always a but where they then go on to justify why that person may have carried out that attack. And to a degree, you've come on the channel and you've done that yourself, Zabida. Instead of just coming on and saying, look, the attack was disgusting, full stop. I don't need to explain why she was attacked. I don't need to say that she is causing more hatred between Muslims. I'm just going to say a woman was attacked at Speaker's Corner, and that's disgusting. That's all you needed to say. That's all you needed to come on the channel and say.
I have said.
No, but there was the but. There was the but. And I hear Muslims at Speaker's Corner constantly mocking Christianity. They don't mock Jesus. They mock Christians. They say they pray, they worship wood, they do all that. So it seems just so hypocritical that in one instance, one community can insult another community, but then if that community insults the other community back, they get stabbed. That's, for me, that. It's crazy. It's just
I think the problem is, Joseph, probably the lack of sympathy that you expect from Muslims. With all due respect, this is somebody that's been insulting our Prophet, peace be upon him, and desecrating our Quran. You can't expect us to be sitting here in tears. We acknowledge the act was wrong, but again, you as a Jewish person, if somebody for years, week in and week out, was desecrating your Torah, disrespecting the Israeli flag, going out of their way to insult everything that is sacred and sentimental to you, and something happened to you, I don't know how you would respond. This expectation that you have of Muslims to be overly sorrowful. I don't get why you expect that.
Not so. I mean, I wouldn't expect you to be sorrowful. I'd expect you to say terrorism is outrageous, and I'm not going to give a but. I'm just going to say
terrorism. It's a stabbing.
Because it's a terror attack. It was a religiously motivated attack, instilled to strike
but do you
terror.
know that he was Muslim?
So he was wearing a thobe. He's
Okay,
attacking. I mean, your entire speech, Zabida. Then why have you, Zabida? Zabida, if he wasn't Zabida, if he wasn't a Muslim, why did you come on here and say that she was attacked because she drilled a hole in the Quran?
Yeah,
I didn't say that she got attacked because she drilled a hole in the Quran.
Then why are we talking about that?
But why do you assume that it's terrorism and that it's a Muslim?
Because of the
same reason that used it. Can I jump in?
Can I jump in first? Because I'm going to go. So if I can just have a couple of minutes.
Well, Steve, you're going to want to watch what I've got. You're going to want to watch it.
Is it sure?
Zabida. Yeah. So I have here a video of Zabida standing next to the Islamist, that little sort of goblin guy who supports ISIS. He's a short guy. He comes. He's very quiet. He does. Suleiman, yeah. And Zabida and Walid and this guy are all mocking a Christian Korean preacher. Now, I'm going to send it in the private chat. Does that sound familiar, Zabida? I'll send it in the private chat.
And I can clarify that. I mean,
wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. I'll put it in the private chat. I'll just put it in the private chat, and I'm going to ask Joseph to play it so that everyone can see that Zabida says one thing in public, but then does something else.
So unfortunately,
that's absolutely no problem. I mean,
could you play it? Can you play it in the private chat?
I can't play it. I've just got to download it first because it's the only way StreamYard lets me do it.
What we're going to see is that Zabida, while saying that you shouldn't antagonize or mock, and I agree with her. I agree with her words that you shouldn't antagonize and mock. And I've got to put my hand up, you know, in the heat of the moment. Sometimes I've fluffed on this, but Zabida is here mocking and harassing a gentle Korean Christian woman at Speaker's Corner. And the reality is that she's right to point out that not every Muslim thinks this way, and I completely agree with her. I can't stress that enough. I've said it multiple times that it's a tiny minority that buy into the supremacist narrative, but the supremacist narrative is there in the books, and unless we accept that there is a supremacist narrative there in the books and that it is there to be bought into, we're never going to be able to deal with the problem that we face. And that's why the liberals can't deal with the problem, because they can't call a spade a spade.
I'm sorry,
just before you hit that play there. Yeah, just before you hit that play button. Now, Zabida mentioned that, you know, I've pointed out that I wouldn't do this. But what Zabida doesn't understand about the Christian faith is that the Christian faith works upon the principle of conscience. It doesn't have an honor code. It doesn't have a Sharia. So what each Christian does, they must do according to their own conscience, and they must do in the full knowledge that they will answer for all their actions before God. And the fact of the matter is, Zabida, is that we Christians will deal with our dirty laundry behind closed doors. And I know for a fact that Hatun has been challenged in private about what she's been doing. The fact that Christians haven't gone down there at the park and been screaming in Hatun's face, the woman doesn't need that. She gets that from the Da'i. She gets that from the Islamists. She doesn't need Christians coming down there as well. But Christians have tried to challenge her and have tried to encourage her to stop this. So you're just flat out wrong. Now, you mentioned that Christians are too liberal, that we allow our faith to be insulted.
Are we going to play the video because you've brought
we're
up
going to play the
video?
video.
I deserve a right of reply.
I'm going to say goodbye now then, because clearly once this video's been played, Zabida's going to be wanting to have an immediate response, and I don't think it's going to be a short one. And I'm not
Steve, do you want to just add what you were going to say before dropping off?
Yeah,
or do you
okay, I will do it. It won't be long. And in a way, I'm going to back up some of what Zabida's said tonight, because I listened to a section of a live stream that you were on yesterday, Zabida, and that Reactionary was also on. Now, Reactionary was in the chat earlier. I don't know if he is still around, but I'm just going to refer to that bit. Now, Reactionary, quite disgustingly, was reveling in this attack, and was, openly saying that, he wasn't sad about it, and actually he was quite happy about it, and that she deserved it. Disgusting. B, Zabida gave a response that actually I quite admired. She was very critical of him, saying that was not the right position. It was a bad position for him to hold. It wasn't what the religion teaches, and that the position that he held and was sharing, would not do the religion any good. So, I can confirm, and in Zabida, you kind of referred to, I think that's probably what you meant when you said you may have done it on other occasions as well, but you publicly stated that that position was wrong. However, and I'm not sure whether this is a however, but you did follow it up by saying it was very easy for Reactionary to make that point because he's an unknown individual. No one knows who he is. How can there be any retribution? People know who you are. They'll see you walking down the street. Now, maybe that was said in for the right reasons, but it did make me wonder, saying, well, so if you weren't well known, might you be saying the same as Reactionary? I hope you wouldn't, and I hope what you said initially was correct.
Steve, briefly, it's the same reason why this video is being brought up, which, by the way, was 2 years ago. I was completely wrong. Oh, it's 3 years ago, actually. Sorry, 3 years ago, and I was completely wrong in that situation. And somebody that's obviously grown a platform and has become more open to speaking publicly, I'm not going to as somebody that's a public person, because of my own thoughts, going to promote and glorify something like that happens, because I'd like to say that I'm somebody that is trying to be advocate for Muslims and a representative of Muslims, and that surely condoning those sort of actions is not a good representative of a Muslim. And also, this video that he's about to bring up 3 years ago is also, and I can put my hands up and say, actually, I was wrong what I was doing, mocking that lady and behaving the way that I was behaving. So, I mean, you can still play it if you want, but I just wanted to give some context.
But obviously, your much more recent violent behaviour towards Banksy was a bit of alert at the poor behaviour.
Me too, Steve.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me just respond to that again, Steve. I don't know if you know this, right? But Banksy, right? Actually, I reported Banksy twice. This is a reflection of the police and the treatment of how they protect women in the park. I reported Banksy twice to the police. He said that he was going to go to a pawn shop and get a sex toy and force it down me, to the point where I'll be spitting plastic for a week. This is somebody that has my mother-in-law's picture as a profile picture constantly on their YouTube channel. This is somebody that's showing my sister-in-law's picture. I'm not saying that it's right. It was a heat of a moment. I definitely lost my temper. But this has been 2 years of constant goading by a man that's double my age, who just the other day said that my dead father is in hell sucking men's private parts. And I have reported this guy twice. Before I ever went down to that park, I reported him twice. Spent 3 hours in the police station giving detail about the constant harassment that I've received from that individual, and they did not act, right? So yeah, you know, again, you know, if you take it or leave it, it's your opinion.
Okay, right. Well, thanks very much, Joseph, for inviting me, and thanks to everyone else on the panel. Thanks, Zabida, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Night, Steve.
God bless, Steve.
Cheers.
So just before you play the video, I just want to finish the points, and then we can play the video. Zabida talked about Christians being liberal and not doing anything about our faith. Now, Zabida demonstrates a gross ignorance of what the Christian community has gone through in Europe and how we were depoliticized during the Enlightenment, something that we only have just started to recover from as a people. And you know, it isn't that we haven't done anything. So, for instance, when the BBC demonstrated once again liberal progressive hypocrisy by playing the Jerry Springer opera, something that mocked and insulted our Lord, I think it was something like 250,000 Christians complained about that program being broadcast, and the BBC went and broadcast it anyway. And then just a few months later, when the first time the cartoons about Muhammad kicked off, the BBC declined to broadcast those cartoons the first time round. And the months earlier, when it was the Jerry Springer opera, everyone was saying, oh, it's all about free speech. But then when the first time the Mohammedan cartoons kicked off, all those same people came forward and said, oh, well, it's all about cultural sensitivity, just demonstrating once again, liberal progressive hypocrisy. Furthermore, when the Jerry Springer opera went around in theatres, Christian organizations used the then existing blasphemy laws to shut that play down by threatening to launch private prosecutions against any theatre that played it. Also, the Charlie Hebdo cartoons that mocked the Christian faith, they were sued countless times by Christians. So it's not that we don't do anything when people blaspheme our religion. It's just that we don't try to kill people. We try to work within the law. And if we can do it, then so can everyone else. It is simply inexcusable of you, Zabida, to try in any way to justify attempted murder, as you have done by creating false equivalences. Also, you tried to malign Hatun with Tommy Robinson. Hatun has not aligned herself to Tommy Robinson. Hatun is a Christian and Tommy Robinson is a civic nationalist. Tommy Robinson is not a racist. You have just libeled him. He could sue you. He's not a racist. He's a civic nationalist. And Hatun is a Christian. She isn't a civic nationalist. The reality is that when she was attacked by a Muslim earlier in the park, the Muslims then tried to say was some kind of Assyrian Christian. Tommy Robinson came to see her. It's not that they've shared a platform, it's that Tommy Robinson came to see her. And there were many Christians heckling him at the time. That you know, it's not a case that that Hatun is somehow in league with Tommy Robinson, as you have just tried to malign her by saying and somehow justify or to dilute the full horror of attempted murder. And now it would be nice to see the video, because as well as attacking Banksy, you and Walid have gone around the park intimidating Hatun, this lady here, Banksy, and a number of other people. And you've got to own your own actions, Zabida. Like, elevate your game, elevate yourself. You've got to develop a better conscience than this.
Okay, so
can we play the video?
Okay. I'll play the video. Yeah.
And she is like Korean. I have to understand. Mika, could you know? It's not fair. You come here to talk.
Can you speak? Can you read it in English? You don't understand your language.
مش هينفع الكلام ده محمد من الآخر.
Johan, chapter 21, verse 14.
Round 2.
이렇게 예수님께서는 죽은 이들 가운데
전
세상을 나신 뒤에 세 번째로 제자들에게
What does it mean? What does it mean? I
We
don't understand.
You have to at least
Wallahi,
read it
if you read it by English,
If you're trying
it
to
would be
teach
hard to
people,
understand.
how do you expect them to learn if you're reading in a different language?
I'm Egyptian, يا حاجة. You read it by Korean.
homily.
I really want to understand what you say. Really, I like
you read it in
you.
English,
I really
please?
understand what you. I
I'm
want to
trying to learn
understand
from you,
what
but
you
I
say.
can't
Really.
learn in your language.
I like Korean language so much, you know.
Just let-
All my
listen.
life, I want to learn the Korean.
We're trying to learn, but we can't.
homily.
Huh?
1 minute down.
Mika.
1 minute
Mika,
down. is
again,
perhaps
Mika.
all right.
7.
Okay, I'm guessing it just continues with them, or does it get?
Yeah, I mean, again, if I can respond, I just think it is a very cheap shot coming from you, Bob. I mean, if we're gonna start playing videos, I mean, I've got another video here of Bob actually slapping Afghan Mo with the Qur'an in his face. So you know, you're not somebody that's immune to using physical violence or acting in a way which is definitely inappropriate. And at least I can say that I was wrong here. You had still earlier justified your attack on him and actually referred to him as a Taliban, or said that he tried to Taliban your feet or your foot. I don't know if that was a derogatory thing because he's from Afghanistan. But again, you know, I've clearly said that this is a very silly thing for me to do. It was 3 years ago. I've apologized for it numerous times. So I don't understand what your point is. If you like the Banksy thing, you definitely have a claim there. This was something that was recent. And again, I don't know how you guys feel about you know, since you want to run to the aid of Hartoon as a woman. I'm sure I've seen you, Bob, down at Soho, strange place to be, but with Banksy, I think drinking pints of beer as this person. I can show you evidence after evidence of this person saying that he would actually masturbate over a 5-year-old child's picture, and said again that he would go to a sex shop and rape me. Has had pictures of Waleed's elderly disabled mother as a profile picture. So if you're going to do this condemn and condone and point out people's flaws, I can do that all day. So you know, that's really my main point on that matter personally.
This is turning into Jerry Springer. So what I'd like to say is, I just made it first and foremost, I respect your honesty and owning your, like, yeah, it was a racist, ridiculous thing that you and Waleed were doing, particularly as Waleed has an accent himself, which is bizarre if you're going to mock someone else's.
I mean, Waleed can.
And the fact that they have a religion that basically everything is said in Arabic. You know, so, you know, tackling someone for preaching the gospel in Korean when they preach Islam in Arabic is just conceited.
Can Waleed just defend himself? Sorry, because he is here.
And also, I'm like shocked at what Banksy was doing. I was on his channel the other day, and if that is what he's doing, as you've described, that's quite shocking. So he's not here.
I don't follow Banksy, so I have no idea.
So I'm gonna say peace to everyone and assalamu alaikum to all my brother and sister. And anyway, this video like more than 3 years ago.
Is that Waleed?
Let me talk, please.
No, I was just asking, is it Waleed? Because no one can see you.
It is Waleed, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not justifying any racist mistake, but this day I was walking and I found my Quran in her hand, and she is talking. And no one was next to me or anything at this time. Not Zubaida was even interviewing someone, and there was conversation running, and she wasn't with me. And I started laughing with this woman, talking like her, like she, you know, I wasn't trying to be racist or anything. When the camera came in the middle, but I apologized for anyone saw this racist or expected this racist from 3 years ago. But people still bring it up. But alhamdulillah, I am someone who can't speak English as well, so I can mock someone for not speaking English or something. But the thing is, my Quran was in the floor. Yeah? In this video, if you check, played it from the beginning, the Quran was in the floor. So I was just, you know, I don't know, but I didn't attack her. I shake her hand after we finished this video. I shake her hand. I make sure she is happy. She is in the age of my mom, who also can't speak English. So I can't be racist to anyone. Big up this woman, and like what I said, yeah.
I was just going to say, I think it's also a massive tangent now we've gone on from the original subject.
Yeah, I think it's probably time to return to the topic.
Well, I mean, Bob is the one that tried to divert it. Why, I don't know. We were having a serious conversation, but you wanted to do this pettiness.
I just thought it was worth pointing out, given the rhetoric that you were using, to point out your behaviour. And just on this, and we should probably return to the Hatton thing, because the reality is that there are countless repeated examples of attacks against Christians and others by members of the Da'i, by the members of that little gang of Muslims that go down to the park. You know, you've got Christopher, the Kurdish Muslim who became a Christian, who goes down there and he preaches, and they attacked him. They've attacked Jay Smith before. I remember, you know, that old, you know, I can't remember his name. Maybe someone can help me. He's one of the regulars of the Dawa gang. He's quite an elderly guy. He goes there early. He's one of the early people, and ends up usually having this sort of shouting match with Kay, or shouting match with a cowboy preacher, you know. And there's been times when Christians have been praying in the corner, like you've got the African Christians, they're praying and they're clapping and they're singing the songs, and Muslims have harassed them while they're praying. But yeah, if Christians, if people harass the Muslims while they're praying, it'd be outrageous. And so again and again and again and again, we see this pattern of behavior in multiple different fronts, in multiple different ways. At some point, you've got to ask the question, why? And the answer, I believe, is that in Islam, we don't all have equal dignity. There is a hierarchy of humanity, with the Muslim man at the top, the Muslim woman under the man, and then the slave Muslim under those, and then everyone else beneath them. And at the bottom are the pagans and the atheists, you know. And as Jews and Christians, despite the fact we're described as the worst of creatures, we are a step above the pagans and the atheists. And the number of times I've caught on camera Muslims justifying their prejudicial attitudes through referencing the idea that Muslims are superior, Islam makes us superior, we are the better community. You know, it's ridiculous. At some point, you've got to accept that narrative is there.
I think you're doing a bit of like anti-Islamic propaganda there, because I feel like in your rhetoric, you're very biased. I mean, you talk about, Christians being at the bottom, and, I don't know why you never speak about, the Constitution, the Medinan Constitution that the Prophet, peace be upon him, had with the Christians and the Jews. Till this day, where there are many majority Muslim societies where Christians are living there, have their churches being preserved, are able to practice their religion. I'm not saying that there isn't tension, of course there is, but from a whole, these Christians who were there before the Muslims even came to the country still reside there to this day. And I just feel like your views on Islam and Muslims are very flawed, very, very biased. And when you propagate these views, it becomes very dangerous, because I'm not going to sit here and say there isn't issues. There are, with the Christian and Muslim relationship to a certain extent. But there are also positive aspects of the Muslim and Christian and Jewish relationship, because all three of us come from the Abrahamic faith. All three of us, have a common prophet, which is Prophet Abraham alayhi salam. And I'm not sitting here trying to preach this kumbaya unity between all the Abrahamic faiths, because, I think that's not what I'm here to do. But I feel like, as people who claim to be from the Abrahamic faith, who claim to, be followers of God, followers of these prophets, it's just very disappointing when I see people from, the Christian faith or the Jewish faith or the Muslim faith being so derogatory and intolerant towards other people's faith, because it goes against what we are taught. And I think Khartoum is a prime example of that. And I just feel like there should be a bit more onus on the Christian community to do something about it, because it has got to a point where there is tensions. It's resorted to the point where it's become very, very violent. And, as much as, the violence has happened to Khartoum, we are also expecting some form of retaliation, because this is exactly what happened in France when the teacher was beheaded. 2 Algerian Muslim women were then later stabbed a couple of days later. Right, and we don't want it to be a situation where it's going to be a tit for tat. And I'm not saying that Christians will 100% retaliate, but who knows these days? Because it's got to that point.
I hope you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hope you're wrong. I'm just going to jump in. We've got 3 people in the lobby who I'm going to bring in. One of them's Banks. He wants the right to reply. I'm going to give him the right to reply, but that's it. I don't want us to go down a Banksy's a beta rabbit hole. I want us to stay on subject. So, Banksy, I'll bring you in. You're welcome to take part in the conversation about Hatun. I'll let you respond to what was said. We've also got Reactionary, who was mentioned earlier, so I'll bring him in. And we've got someone called Young Welsh. This is the first time I've ever done it. I'm going to boot anyone who annoys me. It's my prerogative. But yeah, I'm going to bring you all in now.
To get us back on topic, when Banksy has replied, I've got some points that will bring us back on topic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me on, Joseph. As I said, the only reason I've been listening to the show from almost the start, and I had no intention of coming here and discussing this at this time. But I mean, you can't just allow someone to slander you in front of thousands of people and let that to simply sit, because people will start to believe that is the truth. The fact of the matter is, I have never actually ever threatened to rape this individual. This is an absolute lie. This was a satirical comment, just like when someone says, I will kick you in the butt so far that you'll be smelling my shoelaces for a month. That's how that remark was actually addressed, and within its context of a crass. I mean, I'm not saying it's a happy joke. I'm not saying it's not a crass joke, but I do a show on the Banksy Star channel which is incredibly rude and crass and shocking. So it's within the context. Everybody knows what that context is. As far as the 5-year-old picture thing, which is an absolute lie, we were discussing the concept of free speech and a hypothetical drawings, and I made the remark that I can draw whatever I like. And at the time of the discussion, we were under the impression that you could draw whatever images you like of whatever age people. And I was talking about stickmen drawings. We were discussing hypothetical stickmen drawings. And I said, yes, I can draw whatever I like as part of my free speech and label it whatever age I want and do whatever I want to it.
You
and
said
yes,
that I can masturbate over that picture.
yes, and I can do whatever I want
so
to
you would
it.
like to masturbate over a 5-year-old.
Okay, guys, I'm
picture.
going to close this down because it's not really what I want on my channel. So I
totally agree with you.
It's really degenerating,
I know.
and I don't like
I'm just trying to explain. I'm just trying to explain that we were talking about hypothetical cartoons, Joseph. This is a hypothetical conversation about hypothetical cartoons, whilst this lady herself is on record talking about it is perfectly fine to marry 9-year-olds in the Middle East because young Middle Easterners in the heat and particular diets make them mature faster. There is a difference between hypotheticals and real children.
Okay, guys, I'm going to move on the conversation because it's not what I want on my channel. Yeah, it's a serious platform. I also like to welcome in the latest additions to the channel. Banksy, you're welcome to stay and join in the conversation about Hartoon. You two, because I think you two will just go at it, and it's not what I want. It's not what the audience is here for.
I totally agree, and I thank you for letting me to just simply put that explanation out there, because I can't allow the lies to simply sit unchallenged.
Shall I bring us back on topic?
Please, Bob.
Shall I bring us back on topic? Yeah. So, Zabida mentioned the Constitution of Medina, to which I raise her the card of the Pact of Umar, which denigrates Christians and Jews to second-class citizens illegally, and that is the reality that Christians and Jews suffered under Islamic Sharia. And it's interesting she should mention the Medina Constitution, because anyone who's actually read that any Muslim who's read that wouldn't quote it, because what it demonstrates is evidence of the fact that the Islam as we have it today was not the Islam of Muhammad's time, because in that constitution it refers to Jews and Muslims as being a single ummah, and obviously that is not Islamic orthodoxy to call Jews and Muslims a single people. That's something that demonstrates that in earlier times the Islam of the earliest Muslims was different from the classical Islam. And the Pact of Umar, which is the one that most Muslims followed for like 1400 years, denigrates Christians to second-class citizens in conditions that are equivalent to a racial apartheid, except that the lines of that apartheid system is not racial but religious. If we treat Muslims like the Pact of Umar describes the treatment of Christians, Zabida would rightly be crying out Islamophobia, Islamophobia. But when Muslims do it to Christians, Zabida doesn't condemn it. And she can't condemn it because that's what Muhammad and the companions of the Prophet brought Islam to be. And so the problem is that Islam is the problem. And unfortunately, Zabida, I know that you don't make distinctions between Muslims and Islam, but I do. And I've said it once and I'll say it again. My criticism is of the religion, the doctrines, the values, the historical practice. When it comes to Muslims, I take them as I find them. I don't have a blanket category for all Muslims. You simply hear that because you do. I don't. The reality is there's lots of Muslims that are lovely. I've dated Muslim girls, for crying out loud. I've had Muslim friends. I probably never can do now, but the reality is, and I still, one of the reasons why I evangelize Muslims, Abida, is because I love them. That's the very heart of the Christian faith, is that you feel called to evangelize a certain group of people because you have a heart for them. I have a heart for Muslims because I believe that there's much nobility amongst Muslim peoples. And so I want to bring that nobility to the fullness that it can be in Christ. But Islam is taking people away from that nobility, that dignity that is given to them by God. Now, you talked about it, you know, it's wrong to be derogatory to other people's faiths. Well, in those words, Zabida, you condemn your prophet because your prophet is derogatory to other people's faiths, and you condemn the companions of the prophet who were derogatory to other people's faiths. Remember the hadith that I read earlier where Muhammad sent out Muslims to desecrate religious iconography, to destroy other people's religious temples. That's what Muhammad did and his companions did. So you've condemned your prophet. And I have for you someone who is better. His name is Christ Jesus.
Okay.
Because he didn't do any of the things that Muhammad did. And if you're condemning what you, if you're projecting that onto me and condemning it, yeah, you will. Yeah, if you're projecting that stuff onto me and condemning it, then you've condemned your own prophet, which means you now need to find a better example, and that better example is Christ.
Okay. I mean, again, I will never condemn the prophet, peace be upon him. Making a logical observation about the Trinity or about Jesus Christ being God is not derogatory. It's a logical observation. We can, you know, the Bible doesn't make any explicit statements that Jesus is God. So when Muslims pick up on that, they have absolute right to make a logical observation of something that looks and seems very contradictory without being derogatory. Second of all, you speak about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordering, you know, to burn pagan idols. Well, one of your opening statements, or one of your statements tonight, was that the priests and the popes in Christianity also done the same. So I don't know why you're trying to put that card out to Muslims when you know, I think Jesus was classed as a rebel towards the Romans because he was going against what they were teaching, which was technically paganism in itself. So I mean, you know, my closing statement is really, look, I think the onus should be on Christians. Shame on Christians who have allowed Hartoon to continue with her foul rhetoric. Shame on that individual who went to stab Hartoon. He's not from us. We don't claim him. He's not acting in the name of Islam, not in the name of Islam. And, you know, hopefully the Christians can do better to have civilized, reasonable dialogue. I mean, I've spoken to Joseph before at a time where there's a lot of tension between, you know, Israel and Palestine. I think we had a reasonable discussion. Obviously, we was quite passionate, but I think it was quite civilized. And I think that's the grown-up thing to do. Have these civilized discussions. Bring out your Quranic verses and hadiths that you find, you know, controversial. We can do the same without it becoming insulting or provocative or disrespectful. It's very simple.
So I'd agree with that, Zabid, and I think the conversations we've had have been respectful, and I've never had a bad conversation with you, and I know Banksy, you've clearly got on a very different vibe than yourself and I. Same with Waleed. I'm getting a lot of comments from there's comments going on for Reactionary to say something, and I know Steve spoke of him celebrating, maybe. I can't exactly remember how it was framed, but certainly it seemed to be more celebratory turn as to what happened with Khatun. So Reactionary, if you want to come in and talk, now's your opportunity.
Hello there, Joseph and Bob, Zubaydah, Assalamu alaikum, and everybody else on the panel, and all the viewers. Big up. I'd like to just say, Speaker's Corner is a stage. It's a theatre. And we're the viewers watching what takes place on camera. And what you saw with Hatun looked like a staged event. Not the first time it has happened. Okay, it's happened before. Followed up promptly by a visit from Tommy Robertson to come and give her flowers. So what we're presented with is this image of Hatun being this innocent victim. She's such a sweet young lady. And she's been attacked by these savage Muslim immigrants. Right? That's the picture that's being painted. What we're not being presented with as viewers is the reality of this young lady. I don't know if she's been manipulated or if she's doing it of her own volition. Because my interactions with her at Speaker's Corner in the past have been quite pleasant. But I've noticed over time, she's gone more and more into some extreme behavior, preaching hatred. Illegal behavior, by the way, but for some reason tolerated at Speaker's Corner. A place where PC Barnes himself said is not free from UK law, meaning you're not allowed to break the law at Speaker's Corner. Yes, there's some leniency given to certain speech, but the law still applies. You cannot say, preach hatred and violence, just like a person hitting someone at Speaker's Corner. That person is expressing his emotions. He's doing it with his arms, right? But at the same time, it's illegal. So it's not allowed. And what we're seeing is that there's a game being played. There's a clear objective. There's a group of people who are unhappy at the fact that many people are turning to Islam at Speaker's Corner. They come to Speaker's Corner, they encounter Muslims, they engage with them in discussion, and they accept Islam. They become Muslims on camera. So these people want Islam banned. Now, Hatun claims to be a Christian. What is Christian about her behavior? Does she behave Jesus-like? She abuses and mocks Islam, the most holy book in the Muslim world. And we're talking about a large population of the world who hold the Qur'an as more dear to them than anything else. The word, the literal word of God. And she comes to the park with holes drilled into it. Like, are you kidding me? Like, how can you defend that disgusting behavior? Don't tell me that that's freedom of speech. She didn't just do it once as well. Like, it happened over and over and over again. We have laws against this. We have the Public Order Act. Right?
So you've made
I realize I'm going on a monologue.
You've made a few points. I just want to really want to drill into a couple of them. First, you're saying that you think that Hatun staged stabbing her, getting someone to stab her in the face. That was your opening comment. You sincerely believe that she wanted someone to stab her in the face.
She is suffering from martyr syndrome.
No.
She wants to sacrifice herself, right? There are Christians who crucify themselves. Do you know that? Does that exist or not? Are there Christians who crucify themselves? They nail themselves to a cross. There are people who do that. Hatun is no ordinary Christian. She is an extremist lunatic. She's dangerous. She's a danger to herself.
So Bob's got his hand up. The second thing,
she didn't get stabbed in the face, by the way. She gets stabbed in the face.
Yes, she got stabbed in the face.
Stabbed in the face.
Yes, the knife wound.
She got cut.
It's above her
with a knife.
Yeah, use the correct language. I don't think she was stabbed.
It's above her right eyebrow. It was aimed at her face, but it bounced off or ricocheted off the umbrella stand.
So a knife was stuck into her face, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it was aimed at her face. And
why are you trying to belittle reactionary? Why are you trying to belittle the wound?
No, you're not using the correct language. You're trying to.
No. The attempt was to stab her in the face, but it ricocheted and cut her above the eyebrow.
So she was cut, not stabbed.
No, but the attempt was to stab her.
The attempt was to kill her, reactionary. The attempt, we've all seen the video. We played it at the beginning of the film.
Somebody attempted to kill her, did they?
Yes.
All right.
That's why it's been investigated by the counter-terror unit.
The counter-terror unit. It was an act of terrorism, was it?
So I'll bring up the article.
It's classified.
An act of terror. How is it an act of terror?
Bob is holding his hand up, and it's unfair that we're all jumping in. But I simply want to say,
all night talking, bro. Like,
yeah, but I simply want to say, reactionary. Steve, Speaker's Corner, at the beginning of this show, read out the Public Order Act, and Hatun has done nothing illegal. She has never been charged or arrested and charged for anything that she has done at Hyde Park to be deemed illegal. Never.
Let's compare
done within the law of this country.
Okay, thank you, Banksy. That's your interpretation, which is incorrect.
No, it is the fact.
I'm going to give you an example.
It's a fact.
Hold on.
Sorry, Bob.
Right.
Sorry.
Why was Rat Boy removed from Speaker's Corner? When he spoke to Godfrey and told Godfrey F off, he told Godfrey to F off. Godfrey went to the police officer and said, "This guy told me to F off." Right?
That has nothing to
do with
it.
And then Rat Boy was escorted out the park. What happened to his freedom of speech?
Has never done that to anyone.
What happened to Rat Boy's freedom of speech?
No, that's the thing. He broke the Public Order Act. Hatun has never broken the Public Order Act. She has never been charged. I'm sorry, Bob. Go. Reaction,
that's because the police are supporting her actions. That's why.
Okay, so can I reply?
Yeah, go ahead.
So firstly, everyone should recognize in Reactionary's comments and in some of the other evidences that we've seen exactly what we're up against. We are up against an ideology that leads to a level of conceitedness that borders on the psychopathic. Like, Reactionary cannot actually see that someone tried to murder someone at Speaker's Corner. And he does that because his ideology does not allow him to see that Muslims can be guilty of a crime against those who insult Muhammad. Now, to the claim that Hatun has a martyr's complex. Now, regardless of whether she does or she does not, it is absolutely irrelevant to the fact that there is zero justification for attempted murder. And also, there is zero evidence at all that this is somehow staged. And the mere suggestion that it is demonstrates that we are up against an ideology that cultivates psychopathic tendencies amongst those that buy into its supremacist narrative. Literally denying, literally accusing the victim of staging their own attack. In other words, we'll throw anything into the mix so long as so long as we don't have to confront the failings within our own community. It's always someone else's fault. It's always somebody else that did it. It's always somebody else that incited or invoked the Muslim response. It's never the fact that the Muslim community, by being disciples of Muhammad, don't have self-control, which is one of the fruits of the Spirit. Now, I heard in the comments, which went similar along the lines of Reaction, it might even be in Reaction that himself that said it, why did Hatun smile after being attacked? It's because our Lord said that when they persecute you, rejoice. Because when they persecute you, they persecuted the prophets before you, and they persecuted Christ as well. So you're in good company when you're persecuted. Now, it simply goes over Muslims' heads, the ones at least appearing on this show, that Muhammad instructed the destruction of other people's religious artifacts. So therefore, Muslims cannot complain if someone destroys their religious artifacts. Let me give you some churches, some more churches that were destroyed by the jihadis of their day. You've got the Hagia Sophia Church in Trebizond. You've got the Panagia.
I'm sorry, you're repeating yourself. You said this earlier in the show.
You've got the Nakib.
Joseph, are you going to let him just repeat himself?
The Nakib church that was converted into a mosque. You've got the Hagios Ogenius Church. The point that I'm raising with these is that Muslims have destroyed other people's religious artifacts, following the example of Muhammad. So therefore, Muslims can't complain if someone drills holes into a Quran. You're just condemning your own prophet when you do that. That's all you're doing. You're condemning your own prophet's
Okay,
actions.
so you're happy about what you perceive as Muslims destroying Christian artifacts, yeah? You're happy with that?
Sorry?
You're not happy with that.
Are you happy? No, yeah, Bob, you're saying that Christians should be happy with what you perceive as Muslims destroying Christian artifacts.
I'll quote Jesus' words to you again, that when they persecute you, rejoice, because they persecuted the prophets before you and they persecuted Christ. When you attack our religious symbols, it is a demonstration that you are serving the devil and that you are opposing the Christ.
So you're happy that so you should be happy that you're oppressed. Should you also be happy to oppress others?
So let's deal with that. That's a fair question. Let's deal with that, because the fundamental difference between Christianity and Islam, one of the fundamental axioms of difference, is that Christianity and Judaism both teach that we are made in the image of God, that all human beings are made in the image of God, and that this gives them a dignity that is before any other qualification. Before any other qualification. And so
sorry, you're saying all humans have a dignity. Could you just repeat that? I missed it.
No, Islam, you'll have to get in the replay. Islam does not have that same worldview. There is a hierarchy of humanity, and the unbeliever is below the Muslim in that hierarchy of humanity.
Yes.
There you go. You said yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm not lying. So I'm not misrepresenting Islam by pointing out what Islam teaches. But
is the devil equal in the sight of the Lord as Jesus?
But that is the difference between our religions, and it is the reason why for 1400 years Christians and Jews have been persecuted under Sharia law. And that is
good and evil are equal in your eyes.
And now in answer to the question, what should we do about this? Well, the scriptures say again and again and again in multiple places.
Nobody asked that question.
Again and again in multiple places that we should uphold justice, that we should save those who are being brought to destruction, that we should rescue those who are being brought to death, that we should stand up for justice, that justice should flow like a river. So that means we have to oppose the injustice of Sharia law.
Okay. And what about the injustice of Hatun insulting Muslims?
No,
in Islam, we have a clear text.
Reactionary.
Muslims have been told not to insult other people's gods. This is forbidden in Islam. Do you have that law in Christianity?
No, it's not. It's not forbidden in Islam. Muhammad himself destroyed the idols in the Kaaba.
Sorry, I was asking Bob a question.
Oh, well,
do you have that law in Christianity?
I referred to Banks's answer.
Okay, so you can't answer that. Thank you.
Muhammad
he did answer it. We all know what.
No, you couldn't answer the question. In Islam, racism is forbidden. Is racism forbidden in Christianity?
Yes, of course it is.
Reactionary. You're throwing up more red herrings than a fishmonger.
He's the one that brought the red herrings. I'm trying to show you that his red herrings can be counted as red herrings.
Topic of Hatun and the attack. So
I just want to bring it. I want to bring it back. I want to bring it back to Hatun, because reactionary. Your contribution to the conversation has actually been the most telling of anyone. I thought Zabida was. Well, she was actually very honest. She came across as quite sincere. She added the standard but, which most of the dawah carriers have, but you've come on with something very different. You've done two things. First, you've justified why somebody might want to attack her. Then you said she faked it because she wants to be a martyr.
Because she's part of the Shaheed movement.
Yeah,
like all of you.
Wants to be a shaheed.
You know what? You stop acting like you're all independent, righteous people.
I'm not acting independent at all. I'm 100 reactionary. So I don't block you. So I don't mute you. Let me respond. I am 100% taking a side here. I'm taking a firm stance against terrorism. I'm taking a firm stance against violence at the park. I just brought up a newspaper for the Evening Standard saying that counter-terrorism officers are investigating this. So the counter-terrorism officers are looking into this as we speak. I am 100% against that. Now, you can spread all the conspiracy theories you like on this channel, on any channel, but the reality is there were counter-terror police looking into this. There was an individual who tried to stab in the face, managed to cut her face. A friend, someone we all know at the park, whether we agree or disagree with her tactics, we all know her, we smile at her, we say hello. And you've come on this channel tried to blame her for her own attack, and then said,
So who should be blamed for it then?
who should be blamed for
Is she not to
individual
blame?
the individual who's tried to stab her in the face, and those that incite hatred against people for saying
First of
things that
all-
they don't like.
Yeah,
That's
first of
who
all, I
should be.
don't know who attempted to stab her, and
No,
I don't
no.
know what their
So in the
motive
words
was.
of Ali, in the
But
words of
if
Ali
we use
Dawah,
your
a
narrative,
16-year-old wearing
yeah,
a thobe.
that-
In the
yeah,
words
if
of
we
Ali
use your
Dawah,
narrative, so
no, not mine. I'm saying
how do you know
Ali
he
Dawah.
wasn't in a secret love relationship with her, and he
Wow.
cheated on her?
Dude, he's
You don't
just
know what
trolling
the
right
relationship is
now.
between them.
Joseph, he's just trolling.
Are you serious? Yeah, at this
Joseph,
point,
he's
this is
You're
just
not
saying it's a
trolling.
terrorist
He's
attack.
degenerating the
Some
conversation.
guy
Are you saying that this was a
I think
scorned
it's
She's
lover
totally
of,
innocent. She's
are you
such a lovely
honestly
lady.
I would like to hear from young Welsh and Faz.
Yeah, but I just want to simply put this out there. Reaction, are you
You guys
seriously
can't-
with a straight
can't have a
face saying
proper
that this was a scorned lover of Hatun that came and tried to stab her?
I'm saying,
Is this
I'm
your
saying,
statement?
Can I respond? What I'm saying is, you don't know what actually took place. You don't know what the motive was. You don't know who done it. Let the police carry out the inquiries, come out with a conclusion. Until then, I can be skeptical. I can speculate. I can look at different possibilities and discuss them. I'm free to do that.
Yeah.
Now, are you telling me that she's completely innocent? She did nothing to draw an attack. If the narrative you're presenting is true, right? That somebody
she deserved it because she was wearing a short skirt. Yeah, she was wearing a short skirt and she deserved it.
That's not no. So are you telling me you did not
you're
witness
victim
Hatun for
blaming.
several months provoke Muslims,
You're victim
Again,
blaming.
drilling
no
holes in their
justification for
most
the attack.
sacred holy book?
There's no
It doesn't
justification
matter.
for the
It
attack.
doesn't matter. It
Okay,
does not matter.
so then you have no problem then when Muslims do this to the Jewish book. Yeah, you're happy. With that.
as I said at the beginning of the
So
show, I would be
we'll do
grossly
that, yeah?
offended.
You're
but
happy
I
with
have
that?
as I said before, I'm
Will
not
you
a Christian.
defend
I'm
us
not,
doing that at the park?
reactionary.
Right?
Let
You're
me
going to
respond.
defend us doing that.
Reactionary. Let me respond.
Usually,
As I said at the beginning of the show, I would be deeply offended. But if it's their property, they can do what they want. I'm not going to pick up a knife and stab them in the face. I'm not going to stand by those that stab someone in or try to stab someone in the face.
Nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing
Yeah,
that.
You're
And I'm not-
literally
don't
doing it.
misrepresent me.
You are
doing it.
literally doing it.
No, I'm
Anyone
not.
who's what?
No,
You're
I'm not.
literally justifying attempted murder.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
That's
you are.
your evil connotation.
No, the only one that
Let me
Christ
explain
said you
myself.
shall
I
know
can tell
them
you
by
what I'm
their
trying to
fruits
say
and by their
myself. I don't
fruits
need you
shall
to
know
tell me.
them.
Reactionary, are you not on record to say that you were happy that this happened to her?
Can I tell you what
Can
my
you,
view
can
is?
you confirm that? Can you confirm that video is
I
still
will
on your
answer.
channel,
I
by
will
the
answer
way.
the question in my way, if that's okay. Yeah. So she performs certain actions. Obviously, you don't know who's going to respond to her actions and how. We're living in a time of a global lockdown. People are mentally unstable. 95% of the people that are on camera at Speaker's Corner or online on these platforms are on antipsychotics, antidepressants, they're bipolar, and they're on drugs and alcohol.
So now
Right.
answer the question.
95%. Now you're telling me that
Are
there
you
isn't going to
happy?
be one person that's going to react in a violent way towards that.
Now answer the question. Are you happy?
Now, has she done nothing, right? If you tell me that this act wouldn't have happened but for her actions, right? Can you deny that?
Now answer the question. Are you happy?
Am I happy?
Yeah.
I don't care about Hatun. I don't give a damn about her.
Reactionary, I asked you a question. Did you not say that you were happy that this happened to her?
If I was there, right?
Did you
if I was
not
there,
say this?
I'm
Reactionary,
answering.
I've got the video. We can play the video.
Thanks,
You
Ian.
know that,
You
right?
can play what you like.
So are you
If
going
I
to
was
lie
there-
now, or are you
if
going
I
to
was
answer
there,
the question?
right,
Did you?
here's
I'm
what
not
would
asking
happen.
you.
If
I'm
I
not
was
asking
there
you
and I
right
saw this
now,
guy
are you
come to
happy?
attack her,
Reactionary,
I
I'm
would
not
have
asking
jumped
you
in
right now. I'm
and I
asking
would
you, did
have
you
prevented
say
the
that
attack.
you were happy that
I would have
pain
put
was
myself in harm's way
inflicted
to
upon
defend her. I would have issued first aid to Hatun if I was there.
Reactionary, did you not
I
say
hate her
that you were
guts,
happy
but I would
that
still treat
pain
her
was
fairly as a
inflicted
human
upon
being.
her?
And I do not
I think
condone
you're
anybody
talking about reactionary. You're
attacking
talking
her with a
about
knife.
there's lots of people online with different mental disorders. It
Yes.
seems like we're speaking to someone with two personalities because in one moment you're saying you're justifying it, and previously you said
I'm
you
not
were happy with
justifying
it, and now you're saying you would defend her and give her first
Okay.
aid.
Let me explain, Joseph. Let me explain. I'm not justifying the attack on her. I'm
Yes, you did.
explaining there's a link between her actions and somebody responding to her actions. How they responded is not legal.
This
and
was
is
not my
acceptable.
question, Reactionary. My question was,
How they
did you
responded
not-
is not acceptable and is not
Reactionary,
legal. But
my
it's
question-
expected.
That is not my
Anybody
question.
with common sense will expect that if you're going to behave like that, somebody is going to
anyone with a
retaliate.
brain would
Reactionary.
recognise that
My question-
reactionary has attempted to justify murder.
If anybody cared about
I don't
Hatun,
mind
they
that.
would stop her going to Speaker's Corner and
Reactionary.
stop her doing
Did
that.
you not say that you are happy that pain was inflicted upon her?
I said I was happy to see. I'm happy if Hatun is suffering. How that
There you
suffering
go.
takes place, I don't give a damn. I
Shocking,
was happy when Ali Dawah pulled the chair from her.
Your dean
I
has
was happy
failed
with
you,
that.
reactionary. Your dean has failed you. Your dean has
You're
failed
happy.
you.
You're happy when Muslims suffer.
Islam has failed you. Islam has
Speak up
failed you.
about
Islam has
the
failed you.
200 mosques that have been razed to the ground in the Central African Republic over the last
I
5 years.
want to, and Joseph,
Speak
you're
up
gonna have
against
to
the
use your
Uyghur
mute
Muslims
button
who are
because
in
this guy is just
re-education
calling
camps
everybody,
that Tan
and
used
the
to come
whole
to the Speaker's
conversation
Corner
is just
for
going to
and
descend.
tell us he's going to put them in.
So I want to quote from.
I'll unmute you, reactionary, but I just want to hear Bob. 2 minutes.
I want to quote from Romans 12:21. Do not be overcome. I want to quote from Romans 12:21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That's the Christian way. When they bombed the churches in Iraq, the Christians responded by building hospitals. Christians have done charity work in societies where they have been persecuted. Christians have reached out to those who have blasphemed our faith. Now, Christians do stand up for themselves. I gave examples of that earlier, reactionary. I don't know whether you noted it. But we don't go around just stabbing people randomly, nor, as you have done, do we seek to justify it when people do that. Now, the reality is, and this is the bit that it just seems to pass over the head of every Muslim that I mention it to. Muhammad desecrated the religious symbols of others. His companions did the same. If you are condemning the actions of Hatun, you are condemning your own prophet. Now, I have said that I do not think Hatun has done anything legally wrong. I don't think she has done anything morally wrong. However, from the point of view of prudence, from the point of view of wisdom, from the point of view of utility, I wouldn't do it myself. You know, I think as a prop to make a certain point once or twice is completely fine. I wouldn't have come down there every single week unless you're talking about the same topic every single week, which actually Hatun is. She's talking about Yasser Qadhi's statement, where Yasser Qadhi, in response to Muhammad Hijab, who said, if I gave you a blank mushaf, what would you write in the book? And before he could finish the question, Yasser Qadhi said, Halas, it's not that simple. There are holes in the narrative. In other words, how the Quran came to us, there are holes in that story and holes that Western scholars are investigating. And that's the point that Hatun is exploring. And it's a point that if you read your hadiths, you could see it yourself. There are hadiths where it's clear that there are verses missing from the Quran, that there are differences in the Quran being recited, in the fact that Muslims themselves had to destroy other copies of the Quran because they differed from the one that was commissioned by Uthman. And that's the point that Hatun is making. If you don't like what she is doing, then ridicule what she is doing. Defeat her speech with better speech. That's what you need to be doing. But what you're doing, reactionary, and I think it's shocking, is that you are attempting to justify attempted murder and you're casting aspersions on the victim. And it's a true sign of where being a disciple of Muhammad gets a person. It gets them to you.
Joseph, may I respond now, please? And I take a note of how nobody attempted to interrupt Bob through that whole period, including Banksy style. But every time I speak, I get jumped on and interrupted. So I'd appreciate if I don't get interrupted. What you're trying to do is represent me as somehow justifying what took place, if it was true or if it was staged, I don't know. That's not what I'm doing. I'm simply pointing out that her actions can be understood to have caused this response. That's all. I'm pointing out there's a causal link. Had she not done the behavior that she's been doing, do you think somebody would have responded in that way? No, because it hasn't happened to Lizzie, right? It hasn't happened to others who are very polite. It hasn't happened to Joseph. It's happened to her because she's gone overboard with her hate preaching. Now, do I support the actions of this lunatic who's taken this action against her? Definitely not. I absolutely condemn those actions. And Islam condemns that. This isn't Islamic behavior. This is the behavior of a person who grows up in the streets of London, goes to comprehensive school, and if somebody insults their mother, they'll turn around and stab you. Knife crime is rampant in this country. What is our government doing about knife crime? When have you ever spoken against knife crime? You have 14-year-old kids dying from knife crime. It's a problem in our society. I can't hear you, Joseph.
I don't speak about knife crime. I speak about Israel and Judaism. I'm quite specific. The only reason we're having this conversation is because somebody I know there was an attempt on her life a few days ago, and I actually agree with one thing that you said. I agree that she was attacked because of her actions, but nobody would disagree with that. What we're saying is the attacker was wrong. She was completely within her rights to drill holes within her own property, however offensive it may be. And I agree with you, it's offensive. If somebody did that to the Chumash, to the 5 books of Moses, that would offend me. I would not want to see that. And if it was done to my property, that would be a crime, and I would look to
So my question to you, Joseph,
the law.
My question to you then is, you would be offended by somebody doing that. Now,
Yeah,
if you saw somebody take retribution against her, or the person doing that, wouldn't you feel happy?
No, I'd feel sad because human life is more. Hear me out. Human life is more valuable than paper and pen. And however offended I may be by someone's actions against my beliefs, which is what we're effectively talking, however offended I may be, there is no comparison to actual violence carried out against someone because of those actions. And that's where we have this huge disconnect, reactionary. That's where you are.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying,
the extremist camp, the radical camp, whereas the rest of us are over here saying no. Violence because somebody drills a hole in a book, doesn't matter what the book. Violence against that person is disgusting, it's immoral, it's reprehensible, and it's unjustifiable. And all I've heard over the last few days that's not all I've heard, so I'm going to take that back. I've heard a number of Muslims try to justify it. I have actually seen a number of Muslims online that just, without qualification, condemned it. So I don't want to just say that everyone's reacted the same. That's not the case. But you've certainly come on this channel and you did everything that you possibly could to justify, to minimize, to trivialize.
I'm not justified.
Pardon? You have justified it. That was the whole thing. That's when you're saying when she's drilling the hole.
I established a causal connection. That's all. I've not justified it.
Okay, and the audience.
I condemned it. You didn't acknowledge that I condemned it, right?
So you did condemn it, but you condemned it with also saying.
I'm happy that she experiences pain.
It doesn't sound like a condemnation.
Sense of justice. If she gets struck by lightning, I'd be happy.
Sorry, let me
I was happy when Ali Dawa removed the chair and she fell on her butt.
Reaction. Unfortunately,
by the way, reactionary. Can I ask one question? Are you following in the footsteps of Muhammad when you make these comments? Is this Sunnah? Are you being a good representative of Islam? I know it's a genuine question.
That's a good question. It's a good question, Joseph. I have to be honest. I think my comments are a little bit provocative, right? Designed to be that way with my character, reactionary. At the same time, I think any Muslim is happy when people who are when the devil is gets a slap. Any Muslim is going to be happy with that. And Hatun is a devil. She's no righteous person.
So you are following in the footsteps of Muhammad.
One thing I would like to
I try
say,
to.
yeah,
go on.
one thing I will say, Joseph, despite the condemnations of the Dawa teams and the larger sort of the more popular Muslim preachers, Reactionary, as much as I despise his ideas and opinions, is actually far more honest about his personal at least beliefs than those people. I know Adnan Rashid is a prolific liar. He stood in front of me and looked me in the eye and lied in my face. Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa, I wouldn't trust as far as I can shot put a planet. These people will lie in your face about whether the sun's going to come up tomorrow or not. So as far as all these other guys are concerned, I don't believe them for 1 second of their condemnation and their so-called buts, but this and but that. Where that actually is the key word that you should listen out for every time you hear.
Sorry, Joseph.
Joseph,
thank you for letting me on. I'm going to jump off if that's okay, and I appreciate having a chance to talk.
You're more than welcome to. Okay. Okay, Bob, if you want to jump in, yeah.
So I mean, I think the reason why Reactionary backtracked on his justification of attempted murder is because he suddenly became aware that he had just broke the law by praising a terrorist act, which it will eventually come out that it was. That by praising this act of violence, he's broke the law, and he could go down for some years for doing that, and that's why he qualified and corrected himself. But it was very obvious to everyone at the beginning that he was attempting to justify murder. In terms of had she not done these things, would she be attacked? Well, the reality is that well before Yasser Qadhi's comments, Hatun was attacked outside of the corner quite severely. She was beaten very close to a mosque and hospitalized. And this is long before drilling holes in the Quran, long before Charlie Hebdo. So the reality is that it's got nothing to do with this. This is a long chain of events. Now, they mentioned that this didn't happen to Lizzie. Lizzie herself suffered some harassment outside of the mosque. Godwin has suffered harassment outside of Speaker's Corner. So the reality is that Reactionary is just plain wrong, and he's making excuses. And we all have to recognize that there are a percentage of Muslims that buy into a narrative of supremacism and violence, and we've just got to call it what it is. The conflation between drilling holes in the Quran and hate preaching. This term is thrown out. Oh, Hatun's a hate preacher. Hatun's a hate preacher. I would like to see, please, any evidence of Hatun calling for violence against Muslims, or calling for Muslims to be attacked, or calling for mosques to be burnt down. She doesn't do any of that. Her target is solely and completely the religion, the doctrines and the beliefs. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all, because Muslims do it themselves. So you can't complain. There's nothing that Hatun has done that Muslims have not done themselves, and worse, that cannot be justified Islamically by pointing to the example of Muhammad. But let's give the argument and say that Hatun is wrong for doing this. Well, can you show me where Jesus has desecrated religious symbols? No. The reality is that the prophets of old.
Yo, Bob, can I just say something if you don't mind? You know,
Can I finish my point? Yeah. Can I finish my point? Let me finish my point. Yeah, the prophets of old desecrated idols. The saints desecrated idols. Muhammad desecrated idols. And the Quran is just another idol. And so she hasn't done anything civically wrong. She hasn't done anything morally wrong. And Muslims can't complain. They're throwing stones in a glass house. I want to finish this point about celebrating the destruction of the wicked. And I'll read from Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 11. Say to them, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Yahweh, I take no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but rather that they turn from their ways and live. And that is the difference between the Judeo-Christian faith and Islam.
So, Faz, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to say,
I was going to say something, Bob. Yeah, you know when you said that Hatun is following, she's just doing something. But hang on, you said that Jesus didn't do anything like this. So who is she following? Is she following Christ?
Can I answer that?
Go on.
So what I did there is I said, if we allow the argument that she's doing something wrong, that therefore that you would look at Jesus and you would say, well, Jesus hasn't done this, so therefore Hatun has done something wrong. But a Muslim can't say the same, because when Muslims desecrate other people's religious symbols, you can point to Muhammad, and Muhammad is the example for it, and that's the difference. And that's the point that I was making. So my point, Faz,
hang on, but you don't answer the question.
All I'm saying you're condemning Hatun, you're condemning Muhammad.
1 second. What I want to know, who is Hatun following? She's a Christian. She should be following Jesus.
So she would. So the example that she would be following is the example of the Old Testament prophets, and it's something that continues into the New Testament. There are a full line of saints that have destroyed pagan idols. My point is, if we allow the argument that she has done something wrong, then that means that we have to condemn Muhammad.
But my point is this, though. Yeah, she's doing it for whatever reason. But I want to know if she's following Jesus. Did Jesus do it? He didn't.
Well, I mean,
he didn't, did he?
So for me,
so she's not following Christ. Simple as.
So for me personally,
so if anything, she's following Muhammad. Then, yeah, if that's what you're saying.
So for me personally, one of the reasons, there's a couple of reasons why I wouldn't do this to the Quran myself. One, because it is a work of human literature. It's part of Bob,
if you don't mind, I want to talk about Hatun, not you. I know you don't want to do it. I want to know. We're talking about Hatun, not you.
Yeah. So I'm gonna.
The conversation is about Hatun. So why is Hatun doing it then? That's the point.
Can I just jump in here? Hatun's not here to defend why she is or isn't doing that. We can try and work out why she's doing that. I think it's obvious to most of us why she's doing that, but she's not here to defend that position.
The other thing, I just want to, sorry, Bob, I just want to point out, Faz, it doesn't matter whether Hatun is following in the footsteps of Christ or not. The point is, Muslims cannot criticize her for doing something wrong because Muhammad himself has done what Hatun is doing. Even if Christians criticize her for not following in the footsteps of Christ, Muslims can't criticize her.
Okay, 1 second. So I want to see where the Christians are, to pull her up and say, well, Christ didn't do that. Why are you doing it? So where are the Christians then?
So let me
ask
Bob? Are you actually going to let you ask a question? You've got to listen to the answer.
Can I come in now, Bob?
The reality is she is. So let me just finish my point.
Yeah, but I'm a Christian as well.
Let me finish my point, please. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point, please. I was asked a question. Let me finish my point. So the thing is, she's using it as a prop. That's why she's doing it, because of the comments of Yasser Qadhi. But she's not doing anything morally wrong because the prophets did it, the saints have done it. That's my argument in her defense. And it's also my argument in her defense that Muslims particularly cannot complain. Christians can, but Muslims can't, because Muhammad did the same thing. Sorry, young Welsh, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, but can I just...
just that young Welsh, she's waited for, I'm sure it's he, but has waited for a long time.
Yeah, Hatun is not a Muslim. So she shouldn't be following Muhammad's example, right? She's meant to be a Christian. Hatun is an extremist Christian, right? And what she's doing is she's attracting extremist Muslims. So when she is doing these things, wearing the Hebrew t-shirt and putting holes in the Quran, she's attracting extremist behavior. Right, so when she gets attacked, she's wondering why is it happening? It's because of her behavior. She should not be doing this, and she gets attacked time again. It happens to her all the time. Why?
Can I jump in? Because I bit my tongue a bit. I don't think she is questioning why. I don't think anyone's questioning why. Everyone knows why she was attacked. That's why she does it in the first place. It's an issue of freedom of speech and the right to criticize any religion in any legal way that you like. And as an ex-Muslim, If she wants to criticize Islam, she has every right to do
Yes,
that.
of
If she
course.
wants to do it in the most, if she wants to
I
do
was-
it in the most, 2 seconds, she wants to do it in the most brutish and like raw and visceral and offensive way,
which she is.
she's free to do that.
I'm not saying that.
She could
No,
do
I'm
that
not.
to Judaism,
Of
and she
course.
could do that
I
to
agree.
Christianity.
I-
And if
I-
she was to turn around tomorrow and apostate from Christianity and drill holes in the New Testament, I don't think there would be the same outcry that we're. Please.
Joseph, listen. She has a right to do that. Yes, I agree. I'm not disputing that, but she's doing it. She's doing it out of her own risk, right? So when she gets attacked, then she has, she has to wonder why. Obviously, because that's what she's attracting, that behavior, that violence.
She knows why.
Yeah, she knows
She's
why.
not wondering why. Can I point out something? The thing is, from a Christian perspective, she's not doing anything morally wrong.
Yes, she is.
Isn't.
Yes, she is. 100%.
She really isn't.
Yes,
she really is not doing anything
what
morally
she's doing
wrong.
is
From a
wrong.
Christian perspective.
It's wrong.
No, she isn't.
So Bob, yeah, when you say that from a Christian perspective, she's not doing anything wrong, then that means if she's following Jesus, then Jesus must have done that. That's why she's doing it. That's why she's not wrong.
Jesus didn't do any of that, Bob.
No, 1 second. Bob, you said that she's a Christian, and it's not morally wrong what she's doing. If she's following Christ, then that means Christ did the same thing.
Can I ask
to
you
her.
a question? Faz, I will answer your question, but as you know, I'd like to ask you a question, and I'd like you to give an answer. Do you believe that desecrating the religious symbols of others is right or wrong?
Can you answer my question first, though, innit?
Yeah, I will.
I mean, yeah, well, can you do it?
Okay, but I want everyone to remember that I've asked Faz to answer that question.
Yeah.
So did Jesus destroy any kind of religious symbolism? No. He used violence in the temple to clear out the temple of money changers, but that was not a religious symbol. They were not. That was actually cleansing the temple of people that were sullying the temple with their actions and their activities. But Christ himself, has not in the person of Christ, in his incarnation, desecrated any kind of religious symbols. That didn't happen. However, the apostles, listen, Faz, the apostles did oversee the burning of literature of pagan sorceries. That's in the book of Acts. I can find you the reference. Whilst you answer my question now, which is very simple.
Hang on, 1 second.
No, I'm going to ask you to answer my question.
No, 1 second. So let me just correct. No, 1 minute. Let me get it. I want to understand what you said. No, I want to understand what you said.
Answer my question.
Let me just understand what you said. Then
answer my question.
Yeah, but I'm going to. Let me. No, 1 second, Bob. I want to know. No, 1 second, Bob. I want to understand your question properly. So what you're saying is that Christ didn't do it. 1 minute.
Answer the question.
Listen, Bob.
Answer the question.
Stop running.
Guys,
answer the question.
I'm gonna mute everyone. It's Faz, answer his question. He answered your question. If you didn't understand it, that's more on you. He did answer.
No, 1 second. No, Joseph. The thing is this year. No, Joseph. What I want to know is that. No, 1 second, Bob. No, 1 second. If Jesus didn't do it, so who is she following?
Desecrating
I'm gonna jump in and mute everybody. He did answer that. I can repeat back his answer. He said that she was following it in the tradition of the Old Testament, then some later saints. Then he quoted from Acts. He did bring a number of answers. I want to move the conversation on.
No, Joseph.
It's my channel. With the greatest respect, Faz. It's my channel.
Joseph. But I want to know about Jesus, though. I'm not bothered about the saints or anything.
But he said,
are you following the saints or Jesus?
He said that as well. He said Jesus didn't do.
If you're going to go to Muhammad, then I'm going to ask the same question.
It's my channel. It's my channel. We're moving on. I'd appreciate if you answered Bob's question because I thought it was an interesting question.
No, but you've not answered my question.
But it's not where I want to take the conversation. This isn't Speaker's Corner. It's actually my channel, and I do have. Unfortunately, I have mod rights and I can boot people and I can mute people. And I thought he answered your question, and I would like to move on. I'd like to hear your answer to his question. I'd actually like to hear everyone's answer to his question because I thought it was a very important question.
Please answer the question, Faz.
Can you repeat the question, please?
So the question the question is to Salafi, to Faz, to Walid, to everyone else. Do you believe that desecrating the religious symbols of others is right or wrong?
Well, as an atheist, I
it's not
can
only,
say I
the
don't
simple, because
really mind.
first of all, assalamu alaikum and shalom to the Jewish and peace to the others, right? So, like, what just before I answer that question, I'm gonna try to reply to what Bob said, right? What Bob is very good at is, you know, he picks and chooses what he wants from the Bible, right? So he distances himself sometimes from the old prophets like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and their actions, right? And that's what he's good at. When a Muslim point out certain stuff in the Old Testament, he's quick to say, okay, we got the New Testament, and all of that we put to the side, and we've got the New Testament. But now when it comes to this, you know, he's like, okay, she's following Abraham, but she's not following Jesus, but she's following Abraham. Cool, she's not following Jesus though. So what is this contradiction, this hypocrisy that you're playing? But when it
And
comes
now
to
my answer to my question?
Listen, and the answer to your question now, yeah, like you try to misrepresent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he broke down the idols. You're talking about Lat, al-Manat, and Uzza. There was the whole community did it. So the people who created the idols broke them down with the Prophet Muhammad, because
And so the answer to my question is?
One second, everyone, the whole community have accepted Islam in unanimous. Everyone accepted Islam, including the pagans who were fighting against the Prophet. And this.
So what's the answer to the question?
The answer to your question is the Prophet broke down the idols with the people who created the idols. So
That's
it was
not my
with
question.
the permission. That's the answer to your question, man.
What's the answer to my question?
He's giving you a long answer. You have to figure
Do
it out.
you even know? Remind everybody what my question was.
Your question is, are Muslims allowed to desecrate holy scriptures or the idols or something like that, right?
That was not my question. You see, you didn't even listen and you haven't answered the
that was
question.
your
I'll ask
question.
it
Come
again.
on, man.
So let me ask the question again.
All right, go ahead.
Do you believe that desecrating the religious symbols of others is right or wrong?
Well, that's just the question I just repeated to you. There's no difference.
Well, you haven't answered the question.
I believe, me as a Muslim right now, I can't desecrate the Bible. I'm not allowed. We're not allowed.
So you think it's wrong?
Let me tell you why. It's wrong.
Not the Bible. Not the Bible. He said religious, so that would include like pagan idols,
When it comes to
temples in
religious
India.
symbols of others is what I said.
Yeah, but you need the Khalifa to do that. I'm normal Muslim, like you need the permission of a whole caliphate to do that. Me as a Muslim,
So a
I can't go
caliphate
out.
can desecrate the religious symbols of others.
When it comes
You're
to
twisting
it's a
words.
unanimous
You're twisting
decision,
words,
yeah.
Bob. You twist words.
Yes, yes.
No, this is what he's just said. He said that you would need a caliphate to do that. That's what he said.
But it
not
has to
me,
be
Walid.
within the
You need to pay
vicinity
attention.
of the Islamic, what's it called, territory. You can't just go out.
So
and
that's fine.
desecrate.
So that's cool. So Salafi says yes with certain conditions. Not any. He can't do it.
Faz,
But if
what's
there
your
was
answer?
what about Faz, Walid? You're Welsh.
My answer is I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not very knowledgeable in this side. Okay, that's my answer.
That's a good answer.
Walid?
Yeah.
No, but Joseph,
I
you're
would
missing
say
my point.
that's
I made a contention here.
Wait there, Salafi. Let the others, and then we'll bring you back in. Let the others. Sorry, Walid, you were saying?
Yeah, my answer is the same as Faz.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So, but my contention is clear here. Why does Bob distance himself from the old prophets like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and these prophets when he wants to? Like when we pull up Zechariah chapter 14, verse 12, or certain passages where it's detrimental to what's it called, Bob. Why did he distance himself from it? But right now he wants to say, okay, Hatun is following Abraham and these people, and he's allowed. So what is this hypocrisy that you're playing here? She's not following Jesus, she's following the old prophets. But when we show you the violence that's happened,
So let me reply to that. That's fine.
quick
I
to
understand
denounce
your question. So I just want to quote to you Acts chapter 19, verse 18. Many who became believers kept coming to confess and to talk about what they had been doing. Moreover, many people who had practiced occult arts gathered their books and burnt them in front of everybody. They estimated their value and found them to have been worth 50,000 silver coins. In that way, the word of the Lord kept spreading and triumphing. Not only does the behavior of Hatun sit in the line of the Old Testament prophets, it also sits in the line of the Acts of the Apostles. So it is both New Testament and Old Testament. I literally just read it to you, so I don't know why you're saying lies.
Bob, you're wrong.
And furthermore,
You're wrong. She's a Christian. She's meant to be following the Lord Jesus. The Lord Jesus taught love. Love is the greatest. Hang on, Bob. No, you be thinking all night.
The two Christians are disagreeing with each other right now. You see, that's the problem that we're facing.
Okay, I'm actually going to bring the conversation to a close, guys, because I've got to go to bed, and we've drifted so far from the subject of why Hatun was attacked, and we're kind of trying to put Christianity on trial. We're trying to put Islam on trial. In reality, and a wrap up.
Have they caught the
There
person?
was a disgusting attack.
Have they caught the person?
Sorry, Waleed, you got to get a new mic, mate. I'm going to remove you purely because I can't understand your mic. I'm really sorry.
Have they caught the person?
Have they caught the person? No, not yet.
No.
Okay, thanks for the contribution.
Is it confirmed? Is it confirmed if the person's a Muslim?
It's highly likely. All the likelihood is that it.
There's no such thing as highly likely.
Okay, everyone is defending. The Muslim community is either defending or distancing themselves from the attack because most of the Muslims.
We're not going to claim them though. You can't claim something.
But most are working on the assumption this was an Islamic.
Yeah, that's the thing. You shouldn't go with assumptions. That's the problem.
Okay, that's fine, but it's a free country, and I'm entitled to do that. Just given all the evidence that we have, and the previous attackers, and where it took place, and what the person was wearing, and what all the Muslims who were in the vicinity at the immediate time responded. And so, Waleed, if you've got a channel, you've got your own channel, you're welcome to push that this wasn't.
You haven't caught the person, and you just.
I haven't caught anyone. No.
Yeah, so you have no information, and you're just going on assumptions. So everything you say is just based on assumption. Basically.
Yes. Based on what I've been able to observe.
Yes. Like, you can't go with something that's probable. You have to be 100% certain. You can't just say because he's wearing Islamic attire, we can show you many people who are wearing the niqab have done.
Yeah, and it's just like
found out that they're not Muslim. So why are you going on this? Like it's not fair towards Muslims what you're doing. You have to be 100% sure.
Salafi, why are you on this channel defending those that object to what she was doing? Why is everyone on this channel trying to justify or at least give an explanation as to why give an explanation as to why she was attacked? Yeah, like literally the entire conversation has revolved around the fact, like from the Muslims, has revolved around the fact that she was attacked because she insults Islam.
No. That's one of the reasons. That's one possibility. That's a possibility. But we're not.
Yeah, someone else said it was a jilted lover. Great theory.
To be fair, I think Yassin was very clear that he was against it.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah. No, that's why I invited him on.
Yassin was very clear that he was against it.
Yeah, no, and that's what. Sorry, and I invited him on because he's one of my favorite Muslim voices. He's a Salafi. He's hardcore. He wouldn't let you. As he perceives it, misquote the Quran.
Joseph, sorry, can I just
one at a time. One at a time. We're trying to wrap up the show.
I know. Can I just say, if Muslims, if you thought that this was a Buddhist that had done this, why are you all in the chats and on all the Muslim channels denying this? If you were absolutely convinced that it was a Muslim, or maybe Tom Cruise, the Scientologist, I don't know, I heard he was in town, maybe he did it. But the fact is that you're all tripping over each other, apologizing or trying to justify this. If it was a Buddhist, a Hindu, a Sikh, a Rastafarian, you guys shouldn't care. Why are you care so much if you think it's something else other than Islam?
Basically, what I'm trying to say, it could be someone like Banksy who likes organizing things to incite hate against Muslims. So Banksy could have organized it.
Yeah, you're right. He could have, but it's highly unlikely, and it's far more probable that it was an Islamic extremist, not the average Muslim. The average Muslim in the park. The average Muslim in the park. Guys, I'm going to mute you. The average Muslim in the park and the average Muslim in the UK is absolutely repulsed by what happened, but the likelihood is that this individual belongs to a more extremist stream of Islam, and they objected to the anti-Islamic activity that Hatun engages in. I mean, that's it's a gift.
Sorry, can I say something to you? Like, why can't it be the possibility that this can be an extremist Christian, like the person who slapped Hatun, who said he was a Christian, but the person who slapped Hatun across the face has claimed and shouted that I am a Christian. He said that himself. So why can't it be repulsed Christians who hate Hatun's antics, the way she's making Christians look so stupid and creating this bigotry towards Christianity? Why can't it be?
Right. Can I reply to that?
That's right. Yeah, you're right.
Can I reply to that? So I mean, this again, guys, draws out what following Muhammad can lead you to. This kind of conceited madness that tries to, rather than just accept that there's a problem of Christophobia and anti everyone who's not a Muslim hatred in sections of the Muslim community, rather than just accept that and deal with it, Muslims would rather throw out wild, crazy conspiracy theories about everything that this tiny minority of Muslims are doing, and blame everyone else, because their own religion leads them to the point that they can't accept that a Muslim can commit a crime against a non-Muslim.
Oh, that's a lie. That's a lie. Let me tell you.
And what we've seen is Salafi and others seeking to throw out wild, crazy conspiracy theories.
What's wild about what I said?
To justify and to reduce the significance of the fact that a suspected Muslim, quite probably a Muslim, has tried to kill a Christian at the park. And that's I think should not be forgotten, Salafi. You're talking about attempted murder.
Right. 100%, I agree with you. There's a possibility that a person was a Muslim, and as a whole, as a collective, Muslims condemn this action. We're not saying what you're saying, Bob. You're trying to say,
I'm sorry. We saw plenty of evidence tonight that is not universal.
No, that is universal. What
no,
we actually have said,
evidence tonight is not universal.
I know the brother.
Joseph had screenshots on screen showing it's not universal, and we had people coming on and talking, literally trying to justify the attempted murder.
No, they weren't trying to justify it. They were trying to show the connection between Hatun's atrocious behavior and the act that was done towards her. That's all. That was a connection that's happening. As a Muslim community, we don't sympathize with Hatun. We don't sympathize with her. We don't whatever happened to her. We don't. Why should we care? She's inciting hatred against our community. As a Muslim,
she's not. She's simply pointing out truths about history,
a disgusting cartoon of our Prophet on her T-shirt, week in, week out, putting holes in our scripture, and you expect us to sympathize with that person.
That's right. Are you trying? You're like one step away from Salafi, from trying to justify murder.
No, I'm not trying to justify it. It's wholly condemnable, man. And what that, if he's a Muslim in a Muslim Sharia state, that person would have been killed. Once again, that individual who tried.
Is it Salafi? Is it wrong to try and kill people who insult the Prophet?
Killing someone. I'm trying to give you an example. The person just had to.
A yes/no answer.
Oh, no,
I'm tired of the long. Right, is it yes or no?
So
is it wrong?
It's wrong to insult the Prophet, and it's wrong to kill someone. Yes.
Right. So then you condemned your Prophet because Muhammad had Asma bint Marwan and Abu Afek killed for insulting him. And you can find the references in Ibn Hisham, Ibn Iraq, the Sirat Rasulullah, and Ibn Sayyid Kitab al-Tabakat al-Kabir, Volume 2.
Yes.
And these are examples in Islamic literature of Muhammad having people killed for insulting him. So you have condemned your Prophet, and I applaud you for it.
No, I haven't. Let me tell you why. Bob, this is your low IQ behavior here. Sorry to tell you. When you come to our Islamic literature and our Quranic corpus, you have to have the knowledge to understand what you're talking about. That's whatever you just read now is absolutely fabricated and weak. It's fabricated and weak. Go read. Well, you can laugh all you want. It's fabricated and weak. Ibn Hisham's autobiography of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is riddled with weak, fabricated stuff. And can you tell me who has authenticated that narration? Are you just going to read out anything that you read from Google? You probably typed in Prophet getting mocked and killed.
Okay, what about Uqba bin Abu
I don't want to hear.
Guys, I just want to make a statement and then go.
Bukhari 19499. What's your excuse there?
Guys, this could go on forever. Can I just make one statement and then I'm going to leave? And I know poor Joseph wants to get to his child and family. The problem with the Muslim world is that you don't recognize you have a problem. And that is the problem. The only way you can ever reach a solution to the Islamic fanaticism that exists within the Muslim world is to admit you have a problem. That is the first step towards any cure. If you do not admit to this, you will never move forward. And the problem is the Muslim world has been and has enjoyed a bubble of security for centuries when it came to speech, because you slaughtered and you killed anyone that said anything bad about Islam or anything bad about the Prophet. But that bubble has now burst, and the internet has burst it. You can never put this genie back in the bottle. This technology and this world is going to become more and more inclusive and more merged. And the words of Hatun is but the first of many to come. Believe me, this will not end. There will be more Hatuns. And how many? You cannot kill the world. You cannot kill the world. And there will be many more of Hatuns lined up behind her. And so you have to admit that there is a deep-seated problem with Muslims and their personal reaction and their personal feelings towards their religion. You have to come to the realization that the rest of the world, in fact, the majority of the world, does not follow the tenets of Islam and does not have to respect the tenets of Islam. No one is obligated to respect your religion but you. You are not supposed to burn a Quran. You are not supposed to defame the Prophet. You are not supposed to drill holes in the Quran. That does not apply to anyone else.
We heard you repeat yourself. Yeah, we heard you, right? Just to reply to that, we know there's a problem. Can you hear me, because it seems like it's breaking up from my side.
Yeah, you can hear fine.
We can hear you fine.
All right, yeah. So we know there's extremists within our own community. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us about this extremists. He even started at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, and this is what we call the Kharijites, the extreme fanatical people. And we know about them. And the Prophet said these are called Kalbun Nar. These are the dogs of hellfire. So we know there's a problem within our own community, and we are fighting against it week in, week out. That's my quick response to you.
Can I just point out something? That when I pointed out that the Sirat literature pointed out that Muhammad had people killed for mocking him, the reply was that, oh, this is not authenticated, we can't believe it. But in Sahih al-Bukhari 19499, Uqba bin Abu Mu'ayt was also killed after the Battle of Badr, and he was killed instead of being ransomed because he was someone who had thrown a dead animal's entrails on Muhammad. So what's your excuse for that, Salafi?
So I'll put the hadith in the back chat because I don't trust your, the way you transmit hadiths, man, in any way, shape or form. Just copy and paste it in the back chat.
Okay, so shall I read the whole hadith? Do we have time, Joseph?
I'd rather we didn't, because it's literally 1 a.m. What I'd like, I think what both Banks and Bob touched on is something which I think rings very true for me in my experience with the Ummah, and that is that there's a real denial of some of the problems. Like every Muslim I speak to, it's actually, I'll use a Jewish analogy. In Judaism, when you're very religious, it's like you're from, and you always think anyone who is less observant than you is their mamash. They're not even Jewish, and anyone who is more religious than you is crazy from. They're crazy religious, and you've got the balance just right. And my experience of the Muslim community is, most Muslims I speak to know that there is a problem of extremism. Some will say it's Daesh, some will bring it a little closer, and so on. And everyone will draw that line at a different point. But I completely agree that most Muslims accept that there is a problem of extremism with some Muslims. I think the issue is the denial and the awareness of what actually constitutes as extremism. And so if your reaction to 9/11 is that actually there were no Muslims involved, it was a Zionist conspiracy, if your reaction to what happened at the park is, yeah, it could have been a Muslim, but it could have just as likely been a jilted lover or a Christian or something Hatun staged herself, then the likelihood is that your denial and your views themselves aren't that moderate, because they're not that honest. You have a very strong bias, which is leading you to not look at things objectively. And the likelihood is 9/11 was carried out by Muslims. The likelihood is that Khatun was stabbed by a Muslim who was angered by her missionary work, anti-Islam, call whatever she does, whichever name you like, but it's likely that that was the motivation behind the attack. And if you are tripping over yourself to find find any other reason for why she was attacked, it's likely that you yourself are harboring some sort of biases which are moving you more to the more extreme camp than the more moderate camp. And so it's not a question that you need to answer. It's more of a thing. If you do find yourself, when you see these attacks wherever they are in the world, if you're desperate to find anyone else to pin the blame on than the Muslim community, then perhaps, not the Muslim community, but Muslims, sorry, then perhaps you do harbor some bias, and perhaps that is something that you should be reflecting on. Because as we've seen throughout this conversation, most Muslims are looking at this particular attack, not most Muslims that are aware of it, which is limited to those that watch Speaker's Corner. I was working on the assumption that it was a Muslim that carried out this attack, and a misguided Muslim. And the more people we see coming on this channel and other channels to just say this is categorically wrong, we're not going to badmouth Khatun. We're just going to say we're going to pray for her. We're going to send her gifts. We're going to wish her well, because that would be a much better response than coming on and trying to find every reason under the sun why it is either justifiable or it was someone else and it wasn't a Muslim that carried out the attack.
Sorry, yeah. I agree with you, but to say that Muslims should sympathize with Khatun, and if they don't, they're extreme, I think that's totally wrong, man. Like, you can't say that. That's absolutely wrong for you to say that. That's my opinion.
I personally think that you should sympathize. This is a little woman who was stabbed in the face because she insulted.
You're trying to use
I'm not trying to
words
sensationalize it. It's been investigated by the counter-terror police. We've all seen the videos. We all saw what happened. A man much larger than her plunged a knife at her face.
Can I just point out when Muslims at the corner use language like, you believe, that they use mockingly this idea of God being born through a vagina, and they try to use really explicit language to evoke an emotional response. This is deeply insulting to Christians. When Christians are called polytheists, as Muslims do, that's deeply insulting. When Muslims say things like, Christians believe God had sex with a woman, that's deeply insulting to Christians. When Muslims say that the Bible has been changed, despite there's no evidence, it's deeply insulting to Christians. So I think that again, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Oh.
And if you're going to and bearing in mind, again, the number of churches that have been confiscated and turned into mosques and the desecration of those churches, again, and Muhammad's example of what he did, Muslims can't complain. There's no basis that a Muslim can complain. A Christian could, though I would argue against them. I would think they are wrong, but a Muslim can't.
Sorry, may I just
No.
the fact is, tonight yourself, you showed a video of.
Yeah, we've lost Banksy.
Last
smoke is.
Are we going to stop?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm really tired.
I'll tell you what, because I'm a very hospitable man, I'm going to plug everybody's social media. I'm going to ask people if they want to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon. I'm not going to have the last word. I'm going to give it to you guys. You can say whatever you want. I'm tired. Plug your social medias. Tell people where they can find you and say your closing thoughts. One thing I would like to say is that I pray for a speedy recovery, a refuah shlema for Khatun. And I pray that this is the last violent attack that she experiences in Speaker's Corner or anywhere else?
So I just want to say that, you know, I got nothing but love for Salafi and Faz. My issue is with the religion. It is with the example of Muhammad. And the reason why I point out the double standards that I've been trying to point out all night is because I want you guys to come to a better discipleship and a better discipleship in the Lord Jesus Christ. And we've seen countless examples of why Christ is a better example to follow. And, you know, I think you guys need to, if you're consistent in condemning Hatun for her actions, you have to abandon Muhammad. There's no other logical course of action. Otherwise, you simply have to stop condemning Hatun because she's not doing anything that Muhammad didn't do. And, you know, the choice is really yours, whether you want to be morally consistent, but obviously there is a judgment, and for every word and for every action and for every deed, you're going to answer. So, you know, approach these things with fear and trembling. Don't approach them with arrogance and pride. And yeah, you know, we pray for Hatun's speedy recovery. And I pray, you know, and I pray a blessing on everyone that I've spoken to tonight, including Reactionary, including Zabida, including Salafi and Faz. And I pray, you know, that you're blessed in your morrows.
Yep, all right. Thank you, Joseph. You hear me, right?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph, for allowing me to come on your paddle. Inshallah, I can come on next time. I try to spread whatever I have to say on here. Inshallah, Bob the Builder, you drop Christianity and you come to the truth, Islam. And that's the invite to Bob the Builder and to Joseph as well. Even though Joseph laughing, I don't know. But inshallah, everyone except Islam, wallahi, this is my last words for you, like, man. You have nothing but love for you lot, but Islam is the truth, man. Islam is the truth, the way and the life. As Christians try to say, that's Jesus, but Islam is the truth, the way and the life. You know, except Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the last prophet, and we will try to see you in heaven. And we condemn the action, anything that happened to Hatun. We as a Muslim community condemn the action. It is haram, unpermissible, and in a Sharia state, that person would have been what we call qisas, al-aynu bil-ayni, wal-anfu bil-anfu, wal-udhnu bil-udhnu, was-sinna bis-sin. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a nose for a nose, an ear for an ear. So that person would have, same thing would have been done to him. You see what I'm trying to say? So we condemn that action, and anyone who tries to attack people for their beliefs inside this country, you know, we meant to, you know, try to obey the law of the land to our best of our ability. So we condemn that action. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So, Lafi, I'd like to thank you for your invitation. I'll politely decline because I'm already flying business class. I don't want to join you in economy. Faz, if you want to,
yeah, thank you very much, Joseph, for having me on. All I like to say is, Bob, yeah, obviously attacking somebody, you know, it's wrong anyway, 100%. Right. Well, the only thing is, I think what you could have done is waited a little bit to find out exactly who it is, because at the end of the day, we live in a country where you're innocent until proven guilty. Okay, that's what I'd suggest, because people are just inciting it. Okay, it doesn't matter who it is, it's wrong. Full stop. Okay, and obviously, from my point of view, and I'm sure the people as well, you know, this is, you know, it's bad. But just putting it on people and just saying it, I think you're wanting a reaction. And then when people say one thing or another, then you're just mixing it up. And at the end of the day, you're saying about the Prophet ﷺ, fine, no problem. But bottom line is, with Hatun, she's not even following Jesus. And I think you being a good Christian, I think you need to invite her to follow Jesus first. I think that's what you need to do.
And on that note, I'm going to bring us out. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bob, thank you for taking part from the very beginning. It's been a long one. Cheers, guys.